Chapter 585. Qin Wushuang was a meticulous person. After the thin veil between him and Murong Su had been lifted, both parties shared the same thoughts. When he saw Murong Su acting this way, he knew that Murong Su still had a knot in her heart. "Su'er, do you have any other worries?" Murong Su did not want Qin Wushuang to worry too much. Yet, she also wanted Qin Wushuang to know about her worries. She hesitated and did not know whether she should say it or not. When Qin Wushuang saw Murong Su's hesitation, he looked at Murong Su with a sincere gaze. He grabbed Murong Su's hands and said emotionally, "Su'er, you have worked hard for me. Now, regardless of the difficulties, let me bear them with you, all right?" Murong Su met Qin Wushuang's fervent gaze, and her heart was completely melted. She nodded. "Brother Qin, I do have a layer of worry. It's because my marriage was decided by my grandfather, and I am the only descendant of my father's bloodline. Because my father was obsessed with the way of the sword, he did not have any children. Now, in the floating snow house, besides my father, there is another uncle who has the same strength as my father. The other two uncles are slightly weaker. They have always tried their best to marry me out of the floating snow house. I am worried that when they know that I have fallen in love with you, they will oppose the relationship between you and me. I'm not afraid of them, but I am afraid that they will use this to pressure my father and put him in a difficult position." Qin Wushuang listened to everything calmly. After a moment of thinking, he asked Murong Su, "Su'er, they must be interfering with our relationship because I am a disciple of the Qin clan, right?" "Yes." Murong Su nodded lightly. Now, they all stubbornly believe that the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan is on the decline, and in the future, they will be driven out of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain by the sound of Thunder Sect and the Heavenly Punishing Villa. Qin Wushuang revealed a light smile, and a trace of arrogance emerged from the corner of his mouth. "Su'er, in your heart, what do you think of my Heavenly Emperor Qin clan?" Murong Su said seriously, "Inwardly, I believe that you will become the hero of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and turn the tide. Everything you do now is going in this direction." Su'er believes in her own judgment. "Big Brother Qin, you can definitely do it," Murong Su added in a firm tone. Qin Wushuang smiled. "Su'er, I promise you, not only will I change their prejudices, I will also go to the floating snow house and marry you in a grand manner. I will make everyone in the floating snow house proud of you and make them regret their choice." Murong Su's eyes flashed with joy and sweetness. She tightly grasped Qin Wushuang's thick hand and said, "Big Brother Qin, even without these things, as long as Su'er can be with you, I'm not afraid of any hardship." The two of them shared the same mind and did not have the slightest doubt. They only had one goal, and that was to sweep away all obstacles before them. Of course, these obstacles would not be easy to sweep away. "Big Brother Qin, although you and I share the same mind, I cannot return to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan with you. Can you understand me?" Murong Su raised her head and asked. Of course, Qin Wushuang knew. Although they shared the same mind, they did not share the same status. With Murong Su's identity as the daughter of a major family, she could not accompany him to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan casually. Or else, outsiders would look down on the floating snow house's status. "Su'er, I know your intentions. At the Judge Mountain Prefecture, I met your father. I will return to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and report to the chief. Then, I will go to the floating snow house to visit Lord Murong." Murong Su was full of joy. "Big Brother Qin, I am afraid I will delay your business." "Su'er, this time, I did not come to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan for a big mission. If I must have a mission, it would be to train harder. I want to help the Qin clan solve their problems. Big Brother Qin, don't be too hasty. With your age, you still have a long way to go. It's already good that you have reached this stage. Right now, Su'er is no match for Big Brother Qin." Murong Su was full of pride. She remembered that when she first met Qin Wushuang, he was only at the middle stage. In just a few years, he had reached the peak of the transformation void martial stage and could break into the profound void martial stage at any time. And she, Murong Su, had started training at the spiritual martial force at a young age. Up to now, she was only at the transformation void martial stage. When she remembered the situation when they first met in the human countries, Murong-su felt another wave of sweetness. Those short memories from the past kept emerging in her head. Each detail appeared wonderful. Happiness emerged spontaneously. When Qin Wushuang saw Murong-su revealing the naive appearance of a little girl, he realized that in fact, Murong-su was 2 years younger than him, and the pressure she had endured at such a young age was so overwhelming. When he thought of this moment, endless tenderness emerged from his heart. He only wanted to protect this charming girl and not let her suffer any more grievances. Big brother Qin, tomorrow I will return to the floating snow house with little bamboo. I will wait for you day and night, okay? With her picturesque face, Murong-su asked Qin Wushuang. Okay, I will be there as soon as you arrive. Qin Wushuang promised. Big brother Qin. Murong-su paused for a moment. When you go, if other people from the floating snow house speak to you with disrespect, please forgive them, okay? Qin Wushuang laughed. Su'er, no need to tell me, of course I know. I will do my best to show you the proper etiquette. When Murong-su saw Qin Wushuang being so considerate, she laughed. I am not asking you to suffer. If they go too far, don't back down. Just don't take the initiative to fight with them. I don't want them to bully you. Qin Wushuang laughed. Okay, I will do as you say. After the agreement, Murong-su felt much more relaxed. To Murong-su, it would take at least half a month to travel to the floating snow house. Qin Wushuang was somewhat worried that the heavenly Luo Daoist sect would seek revenge. Instantly, he said to Murong-su, Su'er, since you went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain to sue the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, I am worried that they will harm you. Tomorrow morning, I will send you off. Of course, Murong-su would not mind. In that case, she could spend more time with Qin Wushuang. When he returned to the aspiring throne mountain, Qin Wushuang found Qin Chongyang. Qin Chongyang laughed. You are back already? You did not send Miss Murong off? Qin Wushuang explained the situation, and Qin Chongyang laughed. Now, you receive the treatment of a core disciple. You do not need to report any of your actions. You can make your own decisions. Even if you leave the aspiring throne mountain, you only need to speak through the communication jade plate. Third Chief, I don't know if I can speak about some things. Qin Chongyang laughed. Inside the upright morality hall, you can speak whatever is on your mind. Yes, at the Heavenly Emperor Gate, the Heavenly Emperor is high above, and I cannot see through the truth. It seems that the Heavenly Emperor does not have any special stance. However, I always have a strange feeling that the Heavenly Emperor seems to have a stance. And this stance is not beneficial to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Qin Chongyang was slightly surprised as he looked at Qin Wushuang with astonishment. He drew a breath of cold air. Wushuang, did you observe this? Or did you just say it casually? This is my intuition. I don't know if it's reliable. Qin Chongyang gave a long sigh and could not speak for a while. After a while, he looked at Qin Wushuang with a solemn look and instructed seriously. Wushuang, for this matter, you must not mention it to anyone else. Just keep it to yourself. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang's heart thumped. This way, his guess was correct. Qin Chongyang observed his expression and knew that Qin Wushuang was extremely intelligent. He was already certain. He gave a long sigh. Wushuang, do you think that just the sound of Thunder Sect and the Heavenly Punishing Villa could force the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan to be unable to move? If the Heavenly Emperor Gate had not leaned to the side, how could the Qin clan have been enduring silently and not retaliating strongly after being defeated? Could it be that everything is because of the standpoint of the Heavenly Emperor Gate? Qin Wushuang felt apprehensive inwardly. Don't forget, the previous generation of the Heavenly Emperor Gate was the Qin clan, and not the Xian clan. Among the other 7 gates of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, the one they restrain the most is the seemingly down-and-out Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Therefore, the Heavenly Emperor Gate will never stand on the side of the Qin clan. They're always on guard against their predecessors. Qin Wushuang could not make a sound. He only felt that indeed, the situation of the Qin clan was extremely difficult. Even the ruler of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain was being fair on the surface and pushing them aside in secret. One could imagine their situation. Wu Shuang, with your talent and intelligence, in the future at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, you must suppress your edge. Do not let the Heavenly Emperor Gate feel threatened by you. As soon as you make the Heavenly Emperor Gate feel restless, your days will become extremely difficult. Of course, I am not encouraging you to tuck your tail between your legs. Instead, I want you to show some cowardice. It's the way to protect yourself. Qin Wushuang was speechless. Although Qin Chongyang was an elder at the level of an idol in his heart, Qin Wushuang did not know how to respond to his words. His personality was to do certain things and not to do certain things. If the matter could not be suppressed, it must erupt. It was definitely not Qin Wushuang's style to make him show some cowardice. Of course, it was not that Qin Wushuang could not endure silently. Using the heavenly Luo Taoist sect as an example, he had done enough to endure silently. However, these things would change according to the situation. When Qin Chongyang saw Qin Wushuang did not nod, he did not blame him. On the contrary, he felt somewhat gratified inwardly. It was because this was where Qin Wushuang was different from other core disciples. He would never brush you off. At any time, he would never give up on his personal philosophy. Even when facing elite warriors of the Supreme Tao, it would be the same. Perhaps it was this powerful temperament and confidence that made him stand out from the masses. As Qin Chongyang thought this way, regardless, this Qin Wushuang deserved to be looked forward to. He was a special chess piece that was completely different from the other core disciples. Even as a Supreme Tao elite warrior, he could not predict the potential hidden in this kid. He could only say one word: unfathomable. After returning to the ascending dragon slope, Qin Wushuang took out the sealed scroll again. This was the first time he used the sealed scroll after he had escaped. Currently, he was at the peak of the transformation void martial stage. Compared to his previous refined void martial stage, the level of his summoning was one level higher. Naturally, he could already summon spiritual beasts at the perfect void martial stage. When he took out this sealed scroll, instantly he felt something different. This sealed scroll was filled with spiritual qi movements. What was going on? Stunned, Qin Wushuang sensed it slightly and understood what was going on. The layer of spiritual qi movements on the surface was completely the same as the spiritual qi from the ley lines of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. In other words, this sealed scroll had taken the initiative to absorb the spiritual qi from countless ley lines. This had made those sealed spiritual beasts appear even more clear, sparkling, and full of vitality. We are about to head to the floating snow house. Everyone give your monthly votes. Let Xingyi rush up at the last moment. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 586. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was overjoyed. As he looked at the formation of this sealed scroll, the outer layer of spiritual qi was extremely rich. It seemed that it had absorbed a lot of spiritual qi. Even if he did not continue to add spiritual qi for 3 or 5 years, most likely it would not affect the supply of spiritual qi. As long as the spiritual qi of this sealed scroll would not be cut off, those spiritual beasts would maintain sufficient combat power. This would save Qin Wushuang a lot of trouble. Not only would it save time, it would also save crystal stones. He made hand gestures and activated the sealed scroll. Then, he chanted the summoning spell. This time, 8 different lights with different temperaments scuttled out from the sealed scroll. 5 of them were already his old friends. They were already familiar with Qin Wushuang. However, after being suppressed for such a long time, each of them seemed to be in a rush. As soon as they came out, each of them had a face full of joy. The other 3 with more imposing temperament were spiritual beasts at the perfect void martial stage. These 3 spiritual beasts were rending earth devil sheep, great desolate giant monkey, and illusionary cloud divine dog. It's an honor to meet you, master. Clearly, These three spiritual beasts that came out for the first time were also extremely happy. Finally, they could break free from the endless suffocation of the seal and experience the outside world. Freedom, it's great. These 8 spiritual beasts all transformed into human form consciously and stood before Qin Wushuang. After Qin Wushuang inspected them, he laughed. As usual, the 3 new ones, please introduce yourselves. Rending Earth Devil Sheep, I specialize in Earth Attribute Divine skills. I have a powerful impact on the ground. Great Desolate Giant Monkey, I specialize in transformation, charm, and disguise. I also have powerful frontal attack power. Illusionary Cloud Divine Dog, I specialize in aerial combat. My speed is extremely fast, my attack power is hidden, and I specialize in sneak attacks. After these 3 spiritual beasts had finished introducing themselves, Qin Wushuang nodded with extreme satisfaction. Good. This time I summoned you guys to give you an important task. We are willing to listen to your orders. Qin Wushuang said with a smile. You will know the clues tomorrow morning. Early next morning, Qin Wushuang woke up early. Qin Lan was looking into the distance from the slope. When he saw Qin Wushuang walk out, he called out with a smile, Junior Brother Wushuang, good morning. Brother Lan was even earlier. Seeing that Qin Wushuang was about to go out, Qin Lan asked, Are you going out to cultivate? I have some personal matters to attend to. Brother Lan, please help yourself, Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Qin Lan smiled and struck up a conversation. Last time at the Upright Morality Hall, it really opened my eyes. Junior Brother Wushuang, the second chief, is treating you to a drink. Everyone is envious. You didn't see the expressions of those elders and venerables. It was really too exciting. Earlier, I was worried that you would be ostracized by those core disciples with a sense of superiority. But now, it seems that they wouldn't dare to provoke you. Brother, when you become rich in the future, you must help this foolish brother. Qin Wushuang laughed. Since we are all from the same bloodline, it's meaningless to provoke each other. Brother Lan, I'll take my leave first. Let's spar again when we're free. All right, Junior Brother Wushuang. For sure, I will make you my friend. Qin Lan chuckled and waved his hand at Qin Wushuang. Then, he sent off Qin Wushuang with his eyes. When Qin Wushuang rushed to the guest house of the aspiring Throne Mountain, Murong Su was already waiting there for a moment. When Little Bamboo saw Qin Wushuang drop from the cloud, she said with great joy, Young Master Qin is here. Su'er, Little Bamboo, let's go. After leaving the aspiring Throne Mountain and the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, Qin Wushuang did not dare to let down his guard. Since Bao Bao and Lone had come with him, with these 2 living treasures, the journey would not be lonely. With this escort, they had gone for 4 or 5 days and covered 1/3 of the journey. Murong Su was completely immersed in happiness. With a heart full of joy, he did not pay attention to the time. On the other hand, Little Bamboo counted the days with her fingers. Mistress, if young Master Qin is going to escort us again, we will arrive at the floating snow house. I think it's better to let young Master Qin wait here for a while. At least let him wait for about 10 days before rushing to the floating snow house. Murong Su was extremely unwilling to part with Qin Wushuang. Yet, she had no choice but to part with him temporarily. In the current situation, she could not bring Qin Wushuang back to the floating snow house directly. In that case, it would be the same as demonstrating her power to the higher-ups of the floating snow house. It would not help to solve the conflict at all. She would go back first to sound out the situation and slow down the situation. It would be more beneficial to lay the foundation for Qin Wushuang's journey. Qin Wushuang clapped his hand, and 8 figures flashed out from the sky. Murong Su and Little Bamboo were slightly surprised. Qin Wushuang said, Su'er, these 8 people are spiritual beasts. Although their strength is not enough to defy the natural order, I am assured with them escorting you back to the floating snow house. These 8 great spiritual beasts were the 8 spiritual beasts that Qin Wushuang had already summoned. Murong Su was somewhat surprised. Bao Bao laughed. Senior Sister Murong, these are our boss trump cards. Or else, with so many people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect surrounding us, and so many freelance martial artists crossing the border. How could we do it without help? Little Bamboo chuckled. Great, young Master Qin. You have so many secrets. I must explain to Mistress, haha. Qin Wushuang said with a smile. Let's talk about these in detail when we arrive at the floating snow house. He turned to speak to those 8 great spiritual beasts. It will take about 10 days to reach the floating snow house from here. You will split into 3 groups. 2 will lead the way, for we'll protect Su-Air, and the remaining 2 will cover the rear. Stay close to each other. If there are any unexpected situations, inform me immediately. I will not be too far away from you guys. Among the 8 great spiritual beasts, naturally, the 3 at the perfect void martial stage held the highest position. Each of the 3 groups was led by one at the perfect void martial stage to ensure the balance of power. When Murong Su saw Qin Wushuang had arranged everything so thoroughly, he felt even more touched. He bid farewell to Qin Wushuang reluctantly. Qin Wushuang, Bao Bao, and Lone walked slowly behind him. They planned to go to the floating snow house 10 days after Murong Su had arrived home. As he watched the 8 great spiritual beasts escort Murong Su's group to leave, Bao Bao laughed. What was that saying? Lovers will find their way together, right? Ha, Bao Bao, for your young age, you know a lot. Lone mocked him. Bao Bao laughed evilly. Of course, I am like you, a natural airhead. It will be boring to live. Lone laughed. I'm boring. Why don't you find one? Show me what you've got. Bao Bao said with an arrogant tone. I will not let you see. By the way, boss, when we go to the Heavenly Emperor Gate this time, just what does that Heavenly Emperor look like? Is he fierce? When Qin Wushuang mentioned the Heavenly Emperor Gate, he felt somewhat disappointed inwardly. He shook his head. The matter of the Heavenly Emperor Gate is already in the past. Let's not talk about it. By the way, you too, have you delayed your training recently? Bao Bao said proudly. Of course not. At the aspiring throne mountain, I worked hard. Boss, let me tell you, I feel that I am about to enter the profound void martial stage. Stunned, Qin Wushuang felt somewhat impressed by Bao Bao. Each time Qin Wushuang broke through, he had encountered fortuitous opportunities. Additionally, his body had gone through the baptism of the divine light and had excellent natural conditions. For this Bao Bao, he did not rely on fortuitous opportunities, but on his own talent. This meant that Bao Bao's ancient spiritual monkey bloodline was indeed powerful. Lone, how are you doing? Qin Wushuang asked. Boss, ever since that time when the 3rd chief said that I might be a mutated spiritual beast, I seem to have gained a surge of power. I feel that the profound void martial stage is not too far away. Qin Wushuang laughed. That's good. You two are different from the sealed spiritual beasts. You have always followed me through life and death and built a life and death relationship. I don't wish for you guys to be outdone by the sealed spiritual beasts. Bao Bao stuck out his chest and made a solemn vow. Boss, don't worry. I will speed up and strive to catch up to you. When you enter the Supreme Tao stage, I will follow behind you. Ha, Senior Lone. It would be great if you said you were a mutated spiritual beast. When the 3 of us break through together, 3 Supreme Tao elite warriors will join hands. How majestic would that be? Fervent lights also flashed across Lone's eyes. Clearly, he also yearned for such situation. In the past, he had never dreamed of entering the Supreme Tao stage. However, ever since Qin Chongyang's words, he had gained a lot of indescribable motivation. When he trained, he seemed to have gained more spiritual qi. Suddenly, Bao Bao asked, Boss, have you refined that sky-pilfered pill? Qin Wushuang said with composure, Now, I am not in a rush to refine the sky-pilfered pill. I will let it stay in my stomach. I can enter the profound void martial stage at any time. The 2 chiefs asked me to consolidate and not to be in a rush. I think they have their reasons. Therefore, I have been consolidating the transformation void martial stage. I will wait for the right opportunity to advance to the profound void martial stage. Bao Bao gave a long sigh. Boss, it seems we cannot catch up to you. You will enter the profound void martial stage as soon as you break through. Then you will refine the sky pilfered pill and enter the perfect void martial stage in the blink of an eye. Regardless of our speed, we cannot compare to you jumping 2 levels. Qin Wushuang laughed. Then I will try not to use the sky pilfered pill. The 3 of them walked slowly along the way and were not in a rush. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Those 8 great spiritual beasts also sent news through the communication J-plate that they had successfully sent Miss Mu Rong back to the floating snow house. They did not enter the floating snow house and were already on their way back to welcome Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang was not in a rush and still maintained his original speed. Along the way, he did not neglect his training. Instead, he was extremely focused and grasped each moment. The floating snow house was located in the middle north of the Xianyuan Mount. The terrain was extremely high, and for half of the year, snowflakes would swirl in the air. Thus, it was named the Floating Snow House. The mansion where the floating snow house was located was called the Silver Sky Mansion. In the middle north area, it was also a mansion that was second to none, especially the floating snow house. They had shaken the middle north area. The surrounding mansions all regarded the floating snow house as the leader of that area. After all, the floating snow house was also one of the top powerhouses among the second-rate powerhouses. They were almost the strongest existence beneath the first-rate powerhouses. Similar to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, they were major powerhouses ranked in the top 20. They arrived at the Silver Sky Mansion 10 days later. Qin Wushuang settled down in the capital city of the Silver Sky Mansion. He looked at the towering mountain in the north that pierced the sky. That was the main peak where the floating snow house was located. Now it was already dusk. Qin Wushuang and his friends had settled down in the inn. When they went out, they saw groups of people entering the city one after another. Clearly, that formation did not appear to be the local tyrants. The vigorous temperament made Qin Wushuang somewhat surprised. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 587. Qin Wushuang was experienced and knowledgeable. When he saw this situation, he already had some thoughts. However, at this moment, he did not want to cause too much trouble, so he did not investigate further. After staying at the inn for a night, Xiao Chan finished writing a visiting card and sent it to the floating snow house's branch in the capital city. The rules were similar to other places. To visit, one had to send a visiting card first. Although Qin Wushuang had an extraordinary relationship with Murong Su, he had not received her acknowledgement. Hence, sending a visiting card was a form of respect to the floating snow house. The next morning, Qin Wushuang received the notice as he wished. He set off for the floating snow house. When he was almost halfway up the mountain, Murong Su and Xiao Zhu had already been waiting for him there for a long time. "Young Master Qin, you are finally here." Xiao Zhu was overjoyed and quickly waved. Qin Wushuang saw Murong Su standing halfway up the mountain from afar. She looked like a blooming snow lotus, incomparably pure and holy. Under the morning sun, she looked even more pure and bright. Qin Wushuang felt an incomparable tenderness in his heart as he quickly walked over. For palms were intertwined. When they met again after a short separation, Murong Su missed him even more. Seeing her lover arrive, all the worries in her heart turned into joy. She kept saying in her heart, "Big Brother Qin will definitely solve all the problems. He definitely will. Young Master Qin, this is the floating snow house. You and the young miss have to restrain yourselves. Otherwise, those elders and the like will talk even more." Xiao Zhu reminded him at this moment. Murong Su blushed and said softly, "Big Brother Qin, after you go, you have to be more tolerant." When Qin Wushuang saw Murong Su's expression, he knew that she must not have had a good time in the past 10 days. He felt even more tenderness in his heart as he nodded and said, "Don't worry. I know what to do." The floating snow house seemed to be trying to intimidate Qin Wushuang. They were surprisingly orderly. Almost all the upper echelon had gathered in the main hall of the floating snow house. Qin Wushuang walked into the main hall in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. He was immediately surrounded by hundreds of pairs of eyes that focused on him. These hundreds of pairs of eyes were naturally the upper echelons and important disciples of the floating snow house. Junior Qin Wushuang pays his respects to Lord Murong and the various seniors. Qin Wushuang was not lacking in manners and greeted them one by one. Murong Su stood at the side and introduced him. Murong Qianji, on the other hand, did not seem to have any hostility. A faint smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Young man, we meet again. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Back then, I offered a bounty of 100,000 to find you. Now, you have come to my drifting snow house. Good, very good. When Murong Su heard his father's words, he calmed down a little. Although she was worried that everyone would make things difficult for Qin Wushuang, inwardly, she was determined. Regardless, she would stand on Qin Wushuang's side. She would not let the people of her family bully Qin Wushuang together. Ever since we parted at the Judgment Mountain Prefecture, I have greatly admired Senior Murong's demeanor. This time, it's truly a joyous matter that I have received such a good opportunity to visit Senior Murong. Hearing the words of Qin Wushuang, Murong Su was inwardly overjoyed. It seemed that her father and brother Qin had met harmoniously last time. As long as her father did not object, Murong Su would not be worried about anything. In the end, these people of her family only treated Murong Su as a chess piece and never thought about her. Therefore, she did not plan to change her mind because of these people's obstruction. Murong Qianji laughed. A while ago at the Judgment Mountain Prefecture, you were only an unknown junior. However, after a few months, you are already a famous young talent in the Xianyuan Mount. It's indeed a joyous matter. I see the undeserved reputation as grass. My actions were only to protect myself. Qin Wushuang said modestly. Murong Qianji laughed and waved his hand. Drink the tea. Qin Wushuang picked up the teacup and was about to drink when that middle-aged man next to Murong Qianji, who had been observing Qin Wushuang, finally opened his mouth. Qin Wushuang, from an unknown person in the human countries, you shocked the world with a single brilliant feat in the Xianyuan Mount. Indeed, not many young people have such skills. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly. Senior Qinhuan, you are overpraising me. This middle-aged man had a face full of vigor. He was Murong Qianji's little brother and Murong Su's uncle, Murong Qinhuan. He only laughed. I am not praising you. Don't misunderstand. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly and did not talk back. He took the opportunity to drink a mouthful of tea. This tea was brewed with the melted ice and snow from the high mountain and was extremely tasty. Qin Wushuang nodded and looked at Murong Qinhuan with a neither servile nor overbearing look. He waited for him to continue. He knew that since this Murong Qinhuan had been brewing for such a long time, he would not end it with just one sentence. Apparently, Murong Qinhuan had come prepared. After a moment of silence, suddenly, he stared at Qin Wushuang with a sharp gaze and said lightly, Qin Wushuang, do you know that while the entire Xianyuan Mound is praising you, they are also ridiculing the floating snow house? Qin Wushuang trembled inwardly. Forgive me for being slow-witted, but the floating snow house has a clear reputation. How could they be humiliated because of me? You sure know how to play dumb. Before Murong Qinhuan had spoken, an elder next to him had spoken first. This elder was also one of the leaders of the floating snow house. His position was below the Murong Qianji brothers. He was the younger brother of the two brothers, Murong Qianshan, who had a fiery temper. Qin Wushuang had already received information about Murong Su. He knew that this person was an explosive person who would explode at the slightest provocation. Thus, he did not respond. On the contrary, Murong Su said in a light voice, Uncle Qianshan, on my way back from the outside, I did not hear many people scolding the floating snow house. Uncle, you did not step out of the floating snow house, yet you heard it? Murong Qianji shouted, Su'er, do not be rude, sit down first. Murong Su did not dare to disobey her father as she retreated to her father's side and sat down. However, A faint layer of frost had covered her expression. Murong Su rarely blushed with anyone. It was the first time in her life that she had experienced such emotional fluctuations. Apparently, Murong Qianshan was somewhat surprised. Inwardly, he felt apprehensive. It seemed that this niece of his had changed somewhat after going out for a few years. She was much more resolute than before. "Big brother, your daughter has grown up and her wings have hardened," Murong Qianshan said with a brooding tone. Murong Qianji said with a smile, "When a child grows up, there will always be some changes. Third brother, don't lower yourself to the same level as a child." At any time, Murong Qianji would always shield his daughter. She was his only bloodline and the apple of his eye. Murong Qianshan nodded. "All right, Su'er, now that you have grown up, you also don't think my words are pleasant to hear. In the years that you left, do you know how much pressure the floating snow house had shouldered for you?" Murong Su said lightly, "Uncle Qianshan, I shouldn't have had such pressure. There are so many powerhouses in the Xianyuan Mound and so many young disciples. Everyone had gone out to train. It's not a big deal for me to go out." "Su'er, if you say it this way, I will say a few words to you," Murong Qianhuan said with a somewhat displeased tone. "You are different from them. You had an engagement and ran away when the wedding day was approaching. Second uncle, I've never agreed to this marriage. It's also not what I wanted." "Nonsense," Murong Qianhuan rebuked angrily. "You are simply being willful and making trouble. Su'er, you have changed. When you were young, you were so obedient. Now, who has bewitched you? How come you can't listen to advice?" "Second uncle, I've already grown up. I only know that for my own destiny, it's most reasonable for me to arrange it myself. The engagement is not a child's play. I've never thought about marrying someone I don't like." "Second uncle, if it were your daughter, would you be willing to push her into the fire pit?" "To put myself in your shoes, you want me to marry Luo Ting because of the so-called bond of interest. You can live with your conscience, but have you ever thought about whether my niece would live a good life?" Murong Su did not complain like a torrential storm. Instead, she spoke slowly and leisurely. Like a murmuring brook, it gradually condensed into a turbulent flow. Murong Qianhuan sighed and said, "Su'er, as a member of the Floating Snow House, your destiny is not just your own destiny. It is closely related to the clan. You have always understood this point. Could it be that you don't understand?" Murong Su shook his head resolutely. "No, I only know that if a person can't control their own destiny and has no freedom, then it's better to die than to live. Second uncle, it's not that I don't understand your righteousness. However, I will repay the clan the same way they have always treated me. If the clan wants to push me into the fire pit, could it be that I have to sacrifice myself to repay the clan? You are simply disgraceful." Murong Qianshan flew into a rage and said to Murong Qianji, "Big brother, look at your daughter. What is she saying?" "That's right, big brother. If you don't discipline her, the first traitor of our floating snow house will appear." The other leader, Murong Qianlin, who had been silent all this while, also spoke. Murong Qianji still had an indifferent expression as he swept his gaze across the faces of the other three people. "Everyone, do you think that settling accounts after the autumn still has any meaning to the floating snow house? Luo Ting is already dead, so the engagement is also annulled. You and I both know how absurd that engagement was. Now that the fire pit has been extinguished, from your words, it seems that you want to find another fire pit for my daughter to jump into, right? Big brother, what are you talking about? We are only concerned about the matter, not the person." Murong Qianlin smiled apologetically. "Big brother, you have doted on your daughter since she was young. This is nothing. However, this time, our floating snow house is really passive. Our reputation has been ruined." Murong Qianshan glared at Qin Wushuang and shouted, "Brat with the surname Qin, if I were you, I would shrink my head and not mingle outside. You still have the guts to come to our floating snow house? Do you truly think that the people of the floating snow house are made of clay and do not have the temperament of a peasant?" Finally, the topic returned to Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang said, "Senior Qianshan, please forgive me for speaking bluntly. If you feel that I Qin Wushuang, have sinned at the floating snow house, then list out my sins. If I have something to say, I can defend myself. If I have nothing to say, I will accept it wholeheartedly if you scold me. Senior, since you speak without thinking, I will not accept it in my mouth nor in my heart. Mu Rong Qinshan slapped the table. You, a mere brat from the human countries, harbored evil intentions towards Su'er. You deceived her young age and ruined her reputation. Then, you enticed her to complain to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain and caused the floating snow house to lose all face. If this is not a sin, then what is? There's still 3 more chapters. I will finish the update before midnight. Please continue to push for more monthly votes. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 588. Apparently, he wanted to suppress Qin Wushuang with his imposing manner and make Qin Wushuang feel that he was in the wrong. However, what kind of person was Qin Wushuang? What kind of situation had he not seen? Even the imposing manner of the Heavenly Emperor did not make Qin Wushuang timid. Naturally, there was no reason for him to be suppressed at this floating snow house. With a light smile, he said calmly, Senior Qinshan, when Su'er and I met by chance at the human countries, we were only friends through music. Later on, our hearts were connected and we fell in love with each other from the bottom of our hearts. We never lied to each other. When Su'er went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain to complain, I was extremely grateful. It only made me love and respect her even more. However, if I had known that she was going to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, I would not have let her go. Murong Su also said, Uncle Qinshan, it was my idea to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain to complain. From beginning to end, Brother Qin did not know. Besides, he had the power to make the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect suffer a great loss. Would he need to persuade me to go to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain to complain? Besides, I went to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain because I was angry that the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect had violated the 10,000-year agreement and attacked the human countries. I was not only thinking for Brother Qin, but also for the human countries and to prevent the Xin Yuan Mound from getting involved in the chaotic war 10,000 years ago. For such matter, anyone with a bit of conscience would think of a way to stop it. Mu Rong Qinshan said with a cold sneer, Su'er, what is your relationship with this Qin guy? Why are you protecting him? You better not do something that will bring shame to your family. When Mu Rong Qianji heard these words, a layer of frost instantly covered his face. Qinshan, what do you mean? What kind of person is my daughter? Do you think I don't know my limits? If you have a point, then say it. Do you have any face as an elder by speaking these idle words? The rim of Murong Su's eyes turned red. Apparently, she felt extremely wronged. She bit her lips lightly to prevent herself from crying. She did not want to show weakness before these people. Instead, she said, Uncle Qinshan, you are my father's peer. I respect you and will call you uncle. However, if you were to splash dirty water on me for no reason, I would not have the slightest temper. Yes, I like Big Brother Qin's character. I like his manliness that dares to take responsibility for his actions. Even though he was still a spirit martial realm cultivator at that time, I admired his strength of character very much. Even though he was still struggling in the human countries at that time, and his status was countless times lower than Luo Ting's, I had already decided that it was him. Only such a man was worthy of Su'er's love. This was the kind of man that Su'er could entrust her life to, the kind that she could give up everything to pursue. However, Su'er isn't a woman who doesn't know her limits. Until now, Big Brother Qin and I have been apart more than we have been together. However, we have always been well-behaved and never dared to overstep our boundaries. If you think of Su'er in such an unbearable way, it can only be said that your heart is filthy. It's not Su'er who has disgraced the family, but you. After she had finished speaking these words, even Mu Rong Su herself was somewhat surprised. How come she, who had always been cultured and refined and did not compete with others, had suddenly become this sharp? However, She did not regret her change at all. She knew that in the floating snow house, if she did not defend Big Brother Qin, then no one would help him. She only had one thought in her mind. In the floating snow house, she would never allow anyone to bully Big Brother Qin. Murong Qinshan was so angry that his entire body trembled. "You, Big Brother, look at how much you have spoiled your precious daughter," Murong Qianji said indifferently. "Qinshan, you were the one who spoke inappropriately first. Don't blame Su for being disrespectful. You are an elder who doesn't have some self-respect. How can a younger generation accept you?" Murong Qinshan was very depressed. He said in a deep voice, "Big Brother, in that case, you are wholeheartedly protecting your daughter and don't want us old brothers anymore." Murong Qianji said coldly, "Qinshan, first, what I said was only the truth. Even though I am protecting my daughter, what she said was also the truth. Second, reason is reason. The floating snow house is a whole. There is no multiple choice question of choosing between my daughter and my brothers. Third, we are welcoming guests today and not holding a trial." Murong Qinshan's chest heaved up and down. At this time, Murong Qianhuan stepped out to mediate the situation. "Big Brother, although Third's words are somewhat extreme, they do make some sense. In my opinion, Su'er's actions had indeed crossed the line. Now, this Qin Wushuang had come with such a high profile. In the eyes of the outside world, it seems that we are deliberately scheming against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Second, you are overthinking things. Unless we are immortals, or else, how could we have predicted that a young man named Qin Wushuang would rise from the human countries and become a chess piece for us to scheme against the heavenly Luo Taoist sect? That's a complete nonsense. Everyone knows that the conflict between Qin Wushuang and the heavenly Luo Taoist sect had arisen due to the dispute in the human countries. Luo Ting only happened to be there at the right time. He was not smart enough and had lost his life. At this crucial moment, Murong Qianji appeared to be extremely bold as he said with a cold sneer, "To the floating snow house, Luo Ting's death is definitely not a bad thing. Perhaps you will feel it's a pity that you did not become in-laws with the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. However, I want to say that with Luo Ting's intelligence, even if he did not die this time, he would not have become the patriarch of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Even if he were to sit on the throne of the Tao warrior, it would not last long. This Luo Ting had a fatal flaw in his personality and would not be able to achieve great things. If you were to place your hopes on him, it would be a great mistake." Murong Qianhuan deeply agreed with this statement. However, he also had his own opinion. "Big Brother, perhaps Luo Ting is not a good partner for Su. However, I don't think this Qin Wushuang is a good choice for Su either." Murong Qianji said lightly, "This is Su'er's own choice. Without that absurd engagement, Su'er has the right to make her own choice." "Big Brother, you are spoiling the child too much." Murong Qianhuan was somewhat anxious. "Have you ever thought that once Su'er got together with this Qin guy, the consequences would be disastrous? The floating snow house would be greatly disadvantageous." Murong Qianji's complexion turned ashen, yet he did not speak a word. It was not that he did not know. In fact, he saw further than anyone. However, he could not sacrifice his daughter's happiness no matter what. Qin Wushuang was not afraid when he was glared at by Murong Qianhuan. He said lightly, "Senior Qianhuan, I do not understand. This is a matter between me and Su. Why do you have to give me so many meaningless assumptions? Could it be that because of my relationship with Su, the floating snow house would be consigned to eternal damnation?" Murong Qianhuan said with a cold sneer. "Qin Wushuang, are you pretending to be confused? Don't you know better than me the current situation of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? Now, the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan is like a pile of thorns. Whoever touches it, they will be in great trouble." Qin Wushuang said with a smile, "This is Senior Qianhuan's theory of putting your own safety first, right? If I truly think this way, there is nothing wrong with it. In a Xian Yuan mound, nothing is more realistic than survival. Being the leader of the floating snow house, I must think for the future of the floating snow house." Murong Qianhuan did not conceal his thoughts at all. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not argue with Mu Rong Qinhuan. With a light smile, he looked at Mu Rong Qianji. Under such circumstances, of course, Mu Rong Qianji could not speak for Qin Wushuang. However, in the end, he was the leader of a sect, as he said, "Wushuang, for these matters, it's somewhat boring to talk 1,000 times. If you want me to betroth my daughter to you, you must show me that you have the ability to protect my daughter. Most importantly, you must have the heart." Murong Su stood up and said with a determined expression, "Father, I do not object if you want to test Brother Qin. However, I am determined. If I cannot be with Brother Qin because of the floating snow house, then I am willing to give up my identity as a member of the floating snow house." As soon as she said these words, everyone's expression changed. Murong Qinji also shouted, "Nonsense!" Murong Su said, "I have made up my mind. Father, even if I leave the floating snow house, you will always be my father. You are the father that I respect and love the most. This is an emotion that is connected by blood. I thank Father for bringing me to this world. I thank Father for the teachings and protection you have given me since I was young." Murong Qinji muttered, "Su heir, Father will definitely not let you leave the floating snow house." Murong Qinhuan glared at Qin Wushuang and said angrily, "Qin Wushuang, you have bewitched my niece. You have done a good job. Are you satisfied now?" Qin Wushuang said indifferently, "Senior Qinhuan, if you want to condemn someone, why worry about the pretext? I do not want to argue with you about these meaningless words. Su heir and my hearts are as firm as a rock and surpass the pledge of eternal love. You can choose not to give us your blessings and support, but I want to say that no matter how many obstacles there are, they cannot stop me from being with Su heir. No one can." Mu Rong Qinhuan sighed. "Big brother, did you hear that? Right now, she no longer puts you, her father, in her eyes. Senior Qinhuan, it's useless even if you try to drive a wedge between us. At this point, Su heir and I share the same thoughts. Besides, I have promised Su heir that I will marry her from the floating snow house openly." "Marry her?" Mu Rong Qinhuan said with a cold sneer. "Unless Su heir elopes with you, or else, we will never agree to marry her to a disciple of the Qin clan." Qin Wushuang said in a low voice, "Just because I am a disciple of the Qin clan, you have given me such an absurd reason. It seems that despite the size of the floating snow house, only Lord Murong is a true hero." When Murong Su saw the situation was getting out of control, he shouted, "Uncle, don't force me anymore. I have made my decision. Either you expel me from the floating snow house, or I will only marry Big Brother Qin in this lifetime." After he had finished speaking, Murong Su ran outside. Qin Wushuang ignored Murong Su and ran out directly to catch up with Murong Su. The rims of Murong Su's eyes were slightly red as tears dripped down. "Big Brother Qin, I am sorry. I have put you in a difficult situation." "Silly girl, I am not in a difficult situation at all. If I did not treat you as family, then I would not be in a difficult situation." Qin Wushuang sighed with emotion. "Big Brother Qin, you know my feelings. Am I right?" Qin Wushuang nodded heavily. "Su heir, it's still the same words. No matter how difficult it is, I will marry you openly and let everyone in the floating snow house be proud of you." Murong Su was endlessly happy as she kept nodding. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. How could they talk about proposing marriage? Especially that Yin Zhiyang, he said with a mocking tone. "Lord Murong, it's not easy for us to travel such a long distance. You must not show favoritism. I heard that this Qin Wushuang has some friendship with your daughter. However, they're not engaged, right? You must not favor him because of their friendship. All of us adore Miss Murong." Murong Su walked in and said indifferently, "Everyone, if you are really here to propose marriage with good intentions, then I will not hesitate to say anything. I, Murong Su, will not say any polite words of thanks. I only want to say that if you do not wish to make yourselves look like clowns, then leave the floating snow house immediately. This young lady is as stunning as a celestial being. She must be Miss Murong, right? She is indeed an outstanding beauty. Murong Su's face was covered with a layer of frost. Qin Wushuang walked over with a cold smile and gently blocked Murong Su behind him. He said indifferently, "The four of you, if you are really here to propose marriage, then I will show you some respect. After all, you have some foresight. However, from the looks of it, it seems that you are here to cause trouble. Surnamed Qin, keep your mouth shut. This has nothing to do with you. Now that everyone is standing on equal footing, you do not necessarily have an advantage over us." Lei Jiao scolded with an extremely rude tone. "Yes, who do you think you are? You can represent the floating snow house. Since when did it become your turn to make decisions at the floating snow house? Even if you are willing to become the son-in-law of the floating snow house, it would not be your turn to make decisions. Haha, a nouveau riche from the human countries. He got lucky and truly thinks he is an offspring of a wealthy and powerful family. TSK. From his tone, does he truly think he is from the Heavenly Emperor Gate?" When Mu Rong Qianhuan saw that so many people had come to propose marriage, he also felt relieved inwardly. However, when he saw that these people were speaking more and more outrageously, it seemed that they had come to slap his face. This made him feel somewhat unhappy inwardly. "You are all young talents of the Xian Yuan Mount. Your presence at the floating snow house has brought light to my humble dwelling. However, this marriage is not a child's play. If you're truly here to propose marriage, there should be a matchmaker, right? There should be someone who can take responsibility, right? Haha, House Master Qianhuan, we have all come in a hurry. If we wait for the matchmaker, I am afraid we would have fallen far behind. Even if there is no matchmaker, it should not be a child's play. If you're interested, I do have an idea," Mu Rong Qianhuan said with a smile. "What idea?" Mu Rong Qianhuan shot a glance at Mu Rong Qianji and still opened his mouth to speak. At the floating snow house, only Murong Su is of marriageable age and can enter your eyes. However, there are a total of 5 young talents among you. If you agree to any one of them, you will offend the other 4. "Enough, second uncle," Murong Su reprimanded with a clear voice. "Second uncle, if you continue to use Su Heir's marriage as a bargaining chip, the blood relationship between us will end today. The 4 of you, listen up. Don't think that everyone is an idiot and cannot see through your intentions. Aren't you here to add insult to injury? Even if you are from the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, what about it? I will still look down on you for your inferior character. Even if you are the son of the Heavenly Emperor, I will still look down on you." This was the first time Yin Zhuiyang had been pointed at and scolded by someone since he was born. If he didn't know the purpose of his trip, most likely he would have turned hostile on the spot. However, that Hu Qilan said with a fake smile, "Miss Murong, this is a misunderstanding. I hold no grudge with the floating snow house, not to mention adding insult to injury. It's because..." Qin Wushuang stared at Hu Qilan coldly and said, "The Vase Mound venerable family of the Vase Mound Mountain, right? If you speak another word of nonsense, I swear, I will not let you return to the Vase Mound Mountain." Hu Qilan laughed eerily. "Are you threatening me?" Qin Wushuang said lightly, "No, you are not worthy for me to threaten you. I'm only telling you the truth. If you don't mind, you could try to speak another word of nonsense." Hu Qilan was not a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates. He had come here purely to join in the fun. He would not be willing to stand out and be targeted by Qin Wushuang. When he thought of Qin Wushuang's vicious methods to deal with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, he was truly intimidated. For the time being, he did not dare to speak another word. He laughed embarrassedly. "Everyone, I am guilty because of my words. I will not speak anymore. You can speak if you want." Yin Jiang looked at Qin Wushuang coldly and said with a cold sneer, "I didn't see that you, a kid from the human countries, are rather unreasonable. Could it be that if I speak another word, I will not return to the heavenly punishing villa? You could try." Qin Wushuang said with a cold sneer. Murong Qinji knew that Qin Wushuang was enraged. He also knew that since Qin Wushuang could deal with the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, it would not be impossible for him to kill these 4 people. At the moment, he tried to mediate the situation. Everyone at the floating snow house, you are all guests. It's disrespectful to the floating snow house to shout and kill here. This way, I will set a problem. Whoever can finish, it will be qualified to talk about the marriage contract with me. When he spoke these words, even Murong Su was somewhat stunned. What did his father mean? To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 590. Since Murong Qinji had spoken, these 4 people also feared the master of the floating snow house. Even if they had come from the heavenly emperor 8 Gates, they had to restrain themselves after this overlord had revealed his power. Inwardly, Murong Qinji knew better than anyone that someone must have instructed these 4 young people to come. Certainly, it was a great conspiracy. Whether this conspiracy was directed at Qin Wushuang or the floating snow house, he would have to observe further. Regardless, he must deal with today's situation carefully. Or else, with one careless move, he would offend many powerhouses. Even if the floating snow house were to play it safe, it would most likely be the best outcome. Everyone looked at Murong Qinji. Qin Wushuang was even more alert. He was reassured by Murong Qinji's character. However, Qin Wushuang also knew that with the current situation, the floating snow house would face tremendous pressure. Murong Su wanted to resist, yet he was stopped by Qin Wushuang's gaze. Qin Wushuang did not want Murong Su to continue pressuring them. It was because it would be disadvantageous to the floating snow house. Although Qin Wushuang did not have a good impression of those higher-ups of the floating snow house, he had always respected Murong Qinji as an elder. Of course, he did not wish to make things difficult for him. Regardless of how difficult the problem was, he must complete it. For Su-er, he must complete it and make those bastards speechless. Murong Qinji said lightly. In the deep valley behind the mountain of the floating snow house, there is a stretch of serene black water. It is rumored that the immemorial phantom dragon had entrenched itself there. For a long time, there have been many legends about that black water. The biggest legend is that at the bottom of the black water, there are eggs of the phantom dragon. If one obtains it, one can acquire the bloodline of the phantom dragon and achieve the supreme Tao. Qin Wushuang was stunned. He had somewhat understood Murong Qinji's meaning. Indeed, Murong Qinji continued, 5 of you are all heroes among people. This bloodline of the phantom dragon can only be encountered and not sought. If any of you can find this bloodline of the phantom dragon and present it to the floating snow house, it will be the betrothal gift for marriage. The floating snow house will marry off their daughter grandly. These people were all stunned. Black water? Yan Jiang said with a bitter smile. House Master Murong, since it possesses the bloodline of the immemorial demon dragon, it is impossible that no one from your floating snow house has gone down to investigate it over the past tens of thousands of years, right? Of course there are. However, their luck isn't great enough. After going down, they either can't find it, or they run into trouble and retreat, or they simply can't come back up. When these words were spoken, everyone's faces turned green. They couldn't even come up? Then why are you still asking us to go? Aren't you intentionally harming us? Murong Qinji lightly smiled and said, Everyone, this condition may be a bit harsh, but it is the best solution that I, Murong Qinji, can think of. If none of you have the courage, the determination, I can't believe that you're sincere to my daughter. Qin Wushuang praised inwardly. Lord Murong really had a way. These words were equivalent to immediately provoking them. Since the risk was so great, it would be strange if these people were willing to go. However, Qin Wushuang lightly smiled and said, Since Lord Murong has said so, I, Qin Wushuang, will naturally risk my life to accompany you. Everyone, if anyone is willing to prove your courage and determination in front of Lord Murong, now is the time. Those four people were in a difficult position. Mu Rong Qinji said, "Young Master Qin, don't agree too quickly. You need to consider carefully. Entering that black water might be a fate of 9 deaths and 1 life. This is not child's play." Qin Wushuang said indifferently. Ever since Wushuang made her debut, she has encountered too many situations of 9 deaths and 1 life. Plus, Su'er and I have the same mind. This is the best opportunity to test her, and I can't ask for more. Plus, if I can't fight for the person I love, it is not interesting to drag out an ignoble existence. Yin Zhuiyang made up his mind and said, "Qin Wushuang, don't think that you are the only one who knows how to boast. I will accompany you. You 3, do you have the courage to accompany me?" Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang exchanged a glance and understood tacitly. "Let's go. We cannot be defeated by a nouveau riche of the human countries. Whoever does not go is a coward." Even if that Hu Qiulan and Wu Dingyuan wanted to decline, they would not have a chance. Lei Jiao already made it clear that they would be cowards if they did not ask. Although they were not disciples of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, they were well-known disciples of their clan. If they were to show their cowardice at this moment, their clan would lose all face. Qin Wushuang observed their words and expressions and knew what kind of scheme they had reached. Maintaining his composure, he asked, "Lord Morong, since this is a competition, I only want to ask if we can kill each other after entering the black water. Our goal is to knock down the opponent." Mu Rong Qinji said with a low voice, "It is not my place to make a rash decision. If you truly want to compete, please invite your elders from your sect. They will oversee the situation and sign the life and death agreement. All life and death will have nothing to do with the floating snow house." This was to be expected. The drifting snow house did not wish for the competition to continue and implicate the drifting snow house. Yin Zhuiyang laughed. "Excellent. My second suzerain has long admired the reputation of the floating snow house. He wants to pay a visit. I'll use this chance to invite the second manor master over." Naturally, the second suzerain he spoke of was the second in command of the heavenly punishing villa, Yin Guinan. This person was one of the 2 supreme Dao elite warriors of the heavenly punishing villa. Mu Rong Qinji drew a breath of cold air. A supreme Dao elite warrior? This was out of his expectation. Lei Jiao laughed. "Since Brother Yin has said this, then we should invite my second suzerain. Or else, wouldn't it be too uninteresting?" Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qiulan were only supporting characters. At this moment, they had to express their stance. These 2 houses were second-rate powerhouses on par with the floating snow house and the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. They also possessed similar strength. Only, they were invited and had no choice but to come. Mu Rong Qinji stopped to look at Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang said with a smile, "For my matter, I will make the decision. There is no need to invite anyone." Mu Rong Qinji shook his head. "That's not appropriate. For this matter, the elders must be here. Or else, there will be endless troubles after the matter. Besides, for this round, I will apply for supervision from the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor will send someone to oversee it to prevent people from saying that the floating snow house is biased." Qin Wushuang thought for a moment and nodded. "All right, I will ask the elders of the clan." When he walked out of the door, Qin Wushuang used his jade plate as a core disciple to contact Qin Chongyang directly. He explained the matter and the pros and cons. Being a sensitive person, Qin Chongyang immediately knew that this was a scheme from those 4 houses to target Qin Wushuang and even the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. He asked with a low voice, "Wushuang, what do you think? Since they are looking for trouble, we can use this opportunity to defeat them ruthlessly." For this suggestion, Qin Chongyang agreed with it completely. He had wanted to weaken the heavenly punishing villa and the Sound of Thunder sect for a long time. He could not find a suitable opportunity and candidate. He could not always break out a supreme Dao battle, right? If Qin Wushuang could strike a ruthless blow to the core disciples of the other party, it would raise their morale greatly. Immediately, he asked, "Wushuang, how much assurance do you have?" Qin Wushuang said, unless they have reached the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, or else I have 100% assurance. Even if they have entered the exquisite mysterious boundary stage, I have 80% assurance. Oh, Qin Chongyang was somewhat surprised. You have such assurance? Good. I will ask the second chief now. After a moment, Qin Chongyang sent his spiritual perception over. Wushuang, the second chief, is extremely interested in your suggestion. This time, he will step out to support you. Don't worry, regardless of Lei Ming or Yin Guinan. They can threaten me, but they will not be able to do anything to the second chief. In other words, Qin Yunran, the second chief, had a higher strength than Qin Chongyang. For now, Qin Wushuang did not have much concept of the supreme Dao elite warriors. Upon hearing the words of Qin Chongyang, of course, he was greatly reassured. As long as the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan supported him, he had the assurance to strike a ruthless blow to the enemy. Since this heavenly punishing villa and the other three powerhouses took the initiative to provoke Qin Wushuang was not someone to be trifled with. He was not a ball of mud that the other party could need, especially since the other party had impure motives and used Murong Su to make an issue out of it. This was also a new reverse scale for Qin Wushuang. Whoever touched it would be out of luck. When he walked back to the main hall, Qin Wushuang's confident smile had infected Murong Su. Initially, Murong Su was sick at heart with worry. When he saw Qin Wushuang's smile that was as bright as the sunshine in March, instantly, he felt much more reassured. Lord Murong, the chief of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, will come. Murong Su was overjoyed. When the chief of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan came, it proved that his sweetheart had truly acquired a position and supreme treatment at the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Murong Qinji also laughed. All right, I will send a request to the Heavenly Emperor now. When the Heavenly Emperor Gate received Murong Qinji's request, the Heavenly Emperor himself had shown great interest. He had agreed to Murong Qinji's request and issued an imperial edict to call for everyone to compete fairly and not to form grudges. He also promised that he would send Xian Wuji, the heir to the Heavenly Emperor, to supervise. The son of the Heavenly Emperor, the publicly recognized #1 elite warrior among the young generation of a Xianyuan Mound, would oversee the situation himself. Definitely, this was a major scene, and it would be an unprecedented major scene at the Floating Snow House. At this moment, Murong Qianhuan, Murong Qianshan, and Murong Qianlin had swept away their previous gloominess. They felt extremely proud and expectant of this grand occasion that was about to happen at the Floating Snow House. However, Qin Wushuang's heart was as calm as still water. He knew that most likely this conspiracy was directed at him and the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Whether or not he could shatter the other party's conspiracy, it would not only concern his own fate, but also the future of him and Murong Su. It would also concern the entangling fate of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, the Sound of Thunder sect, and the Heavenly Punishing Villa. Before this battle had even started, it had been endowed with countless layers of profound meaning. Naturally, Qin Wushuang was not afraid. In terms of battle, he was fearless. Even if he was about to face the most exceptional young talent of the Xianyuan Mound, he would not be afraid. After the battle with the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect, Qin Wushuang's stage had completely sublimated. He was no longer a martial artist at the human countries. Instead, he had completely adapted to the level of competition at the Xianyuan Mound. Additionally, he could handle it with ease. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 591. After the battle was agreed, Qin Wushuang was much calmer. He had been in the martial arts world for so many years and was no stranger to this kind of situation. So what if it was 1 against 4? Qin Wushuang was not afraid at all. He naturally knew that the so-called marriage proposal was targeted at him, Qin Wushuang. Without a doubt, his name, Qin Wushuang, should have caused the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect to be on high alert. However, Qin Wushuang was very calm. Today, he was very clear about his situation and the mission he had to carry. The snow at the back of the mountain was a few feet thick. However, Qin Wushuang and Murong Su walked on the snowy ground as if they were floating on feather. They did not leave any footprints at all. At this moment, the two of them had completely merged their minds. There was no setback that could separate them. Murong Su was not worried about this, but Qin Wushuang's safety. Big brother Qin, the black water is at the bottom of the deep valley at the back of the mountain. It is an endless lake like an ocean. The disciples of the floating snow house all call it the Black Dead Sea. Usually, the disciples of the floating snow house also explore the black water, but no one dares to go deep. The younger generation is also restricted by the sect to go below 200 feet. As for the demonic dragon bloodline that Father mentioned, no one knows where it is. According to the previous generations of the floating snow house, the active area of the immemorial demonic dragon was at least 500 feet below. 500 feet? Qin Wushuang was also slightly shocked. Murong Su nodded. Big brother Qin, Su'er really does not want you to go down. Big brother Qin, Su'er only needs one word from you. Even if I leave the floating snow house with you now and never come back, Su'er will not regret it. This is not your fault. They forced you. Qin Wushuang looked at Murong Su's sincere eyes. She was really a considerate girl. Qin Wushuang was not a fool. He knew that for a girl to say such words and do all the things she had done for him, it was not something an ordinary girl could do. That required endless courage and determination. Murong Su also looked at Qin Wushuang seriously, waiting for Qin Wushuang's decision. Qin Wushuang revealed a confident smile and looked into the distance leisurely. Su'er, I've said it before. You've done so much for me, suffered so much, and suffered so much. Now it's time for me to do something for you. Tell me, how could I bear to let you betray the sect and bear an eternal infamy? I'm going to take you away, but I won't allow anyone to criticize you. I won't let you be cursed for no reason. I've said it before. I will openly bring you out of the floating snow house. It was not the first time Murong Su had heard Qin Wushuang speak these words. Yet each time, she felt intoxicated when she heard it. She was very proud that she was right. This man was worth entrusting her life to. He did not have any selfish motives. He always thought of her and did not let her bear any grievances. Brother Qin, you know that I am willing to go with you, and I am not afraid of being cursed. I only know that in my heart, no one can compare to Brother Qin. Brother Qin, do you know when was the first time I had feelings for you? Was it at Xiao Bailong's Inn, when you and I played the zither for the first time? Qin Wushuang recalled the past and felt incomparably sweet. The only regretful thing was that at that time, Qin Wushuang was worried about the safety of his teacher. He had been depressed all the time. When he met Murong Su by chance, they did not establish any deep friendship. On the other hand, Murong Su had helped the Stargaze Palace to drive away Luo Yun. This had deepened Qin Wushuang's impression of Murong Su. Murong Su smiled lightly. Her picturesque appearance made Qin Wushuang feel incomparable affection for her. Brother Qin, it's the first time I have fallen in love with you. I am afraid you don't even know about me. Before you entered Xiao Bailong's Inn, do you remember when you were walking on the street and a person was thrown out from a restaurant across the street? Did you save him? You were talking about Xiao Guan. Qin Wushuang still had a deep impression of the situation at that time. At that time, Xiao Guan was being bullied by an aristocrat from the capital city of the Nine Raven Empire. Since Qin Wushuang had stepped out to save Xiao Guan, they had formed a bond of master and servant. Currently, Xiao Guan had made great progress in the human countries. Yes, it's that young man. Brother Qin, at that time when you helped him, I saw it from upstairs. At that time, I felt that Brother Qin was somewhat different than ordinary martial artists. Murong Su recalled the situation at that time with sweetness. I have traveled for a long time in the human countries and am used to seeing people fighting and scheming against each other. However, it's my first time seeing such a chivalrous hero like Brother Qin. Therefore, I feel that you are somewhat different from ordinary young people. Qin Wushuang laughed. Sewer, I believe that in this world, I am not the only one who would help others when they see injustice. Those things, anyone with a sense of justice and the strength to take care of them would have taken care of it. If my cultivation was not enough at that time, and I could not intervene, then I probably would not have intervened. Murong Su laughed. Brother Qin, perhaps there are still such people. But I just happened to meet you. Before this, I also heard that many places in the human countries were talking about Qin Wushuang. They were talking about how you were in the limelight in the 3 eastern countries and how you rose to power. But at that time, I really did not know that you were that Qin Wushuang. I only found out about this later. Qin Wushuang said, Sewer, presumably, that trip to the 9 Raven Empire was fated to be between you and me. Who said it wasn't? Murong Su gave a light sigh. Brother Qin, ever since you left the 9 Raven Empire, every day I would think about you, a man I met by chance. I wanted to know your identity, why you were so depressed, and why you entered the dispersed praying mountain. Brother Qin, don't you think I am somewhat foolish? Murong Su smiled, and her eyes were brimming with happiness. Sewer, this is fate. How could you be foolish? Yes, I think so too. Or else, how come when I saw so many so-called outstanding young talents of the Xianyuan Mound, I never felt that any one of them was truly good? But in the human countries, an unexpected encounter caused Su, to be extremely curious about Big Brother Qin. If someone says that this isn't fate, Sewer definitely won't believe it. Qin Wushuang laughed. Unfortunately, I was too foolish at that time. No, it's not that you were foolish. Later on, when I learned that you were seeking medicine for your teacher and risked being chased to explore the dispersed praying mountain, I admired you even more. Thus, even that little girl, Little Bamboo, thought I was crazy when she heard that I was going to the human countries. Brother Qin, tell me, did I make the right choice? If I had not gone to the human countries, how could I have heard so many people praising you? If I had not gone to the human countries, how could I have known that you are an extraordinary man that values friendship and righteousness? Sewer, today, you have praised me enough. Murong Su shook her head seriously. Brother Qin, I am not praising you. I am speaking the truth. Brother Qin, when I left the Stargaze Palace, I kept telling myself not to leave. However, my pride as a girl forced me to leave. Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. Sewer, when you helped the Stargaze Palace out of danger, I am extremely grateful to you. Later on, when I arrived at the Xianyuan Mound and learned about your situation, I had an extra layer of admiration for you. Murong Su smiled sweetly. Brother Qin, at that time, I was also worried that Luo Ting would harm you. Thus, on the way to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain, I was extremely anxious and in a hurry. I did not even hear the news that you had killed Luo Ting. I was only told after I had filed a complaint. At that time, I was truly overjoyed. Su'er, those nightmares are all in the past. Qin Wushuang comforted her. Brother Qin, I'm telling you so much because I want to tell you that I have feelings for you. Therefore, it doesn't matter if you go to the Black Water or not. Between us, there is no need for such tests. I'm truly worried about your safety. Su'er, I have a tough life. Many times, my enemies thought that I was dead for sure. In the end, they were all disappointed. However, Brother Qin, this time, the 4 of them had joined hands. And this was a deliberate plot against you. Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang are both at the peak of the profound Void Martial stage. For this trip to the Black Water, their sect will surely bestow them with divine weapons. I am worried that under the Black Water, they will play evil tricks on you. Certainly, they would not be interested in acquiring the bloodline of the Phantom Dragon. Their true intention is to deal with you. Murong Su was exceptionally intelligent. Of course, this little matter could not be hidden from her. Qin Wushuang said with a smile, Su'er, how could their tricks be hidden from me? Divine weapons? What about it? I already have the things they need from the sect. Besides, they might not have the trump cards I have. Su'er, perhaps the trump cards I have are not enough to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat, however. One day, I will let the entire Xianyuan Mound know that it is stupid to become enemies with the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Brother Qin, naturally, Murong-su was somewhat surprised when she heard Qin Wushuang speak these words. However, Qin Wushuang revealed an extremely confident expression. Su-er, do you still remember those 8 spiritual beasts that sent you back? The strongest among them is at the perfect void martial stage. If I need it, I can summon 2 spiritual beasts at the profound, mysterious stage at any time. If the situation is dire, I can even summon spiritual beasts at the peak of the common mysterious stage. Therefore, unless they are elite warriors of the Supreme Tao, not to mention 4, I would not be afraid even if there were 10 of them. In terms of a battle of wits and power, that game I played with the heavenly Luo Daoist sect was much more exciting than this one. Murong-su listened as if she was intoxicated. Brother Qin, now I am really curious about how many miracles will appear from you. A young man who had made his fortune in the human countries possessed divine weapons, the ability to summon powerful spiritual beasts, and endless wisdom. Such a young man was the oddity of the martial arts world and the nightmare of all opponents. Su-er, I will tell you about these things in the future. When we are together, we will surely witness more miracles. Please believe in me. I believe in you. Murong-su never doubted that Qin Wushuang had such potential. Countless experiences had proven this point. All the miracles that had happened to Qin Wushuang had almost become a phenomenon. Today, I went shopping with Annie Nyo for the entire day. Plus, I stayed up late for the past few days, so I was tired. In the end, I could not even carry little Nyo when I walked home. I only regained some of my strength at night. Today was April Fool's Day, yet I would not joke with everyone. Breaking out at 5 o'clock, regardless of how tired or bitter I was, I must persist until the end. Honestly, I am in low spirits. It's because the monthly votes were not as good as I had imagined. It also did not reflect the rewards I had earned with my hard work. However, I will fulfill my promise at 5 o'clock, even if I stay up late into the night. Please cast your precious monthly votes for me. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 592. From Qin Wushuang's Confidence. Murong-su felt a form of firm belief. It made him feel even more confident in Qin Wushuang. He was also not as worried about the future of the battle at the Blackwater. Regardless of whether he could acquire the bloodline of the Phantom Dragon or not, it would not matter. As long as Yin Zhuiyang and the other 3 could not harm Qin Wushuang, he would not be afraid. It would not matter even if all 5 of them failed. At least, the Floating Snow House would have an excuse to reject those 4 powerhouses and would not be troubled. When he returned to the Floating Snow House, Murong-su personally arranged a hospitable place for Qin Wushuang and sent his trusted subordinate to listen to his orders. Currently, Murong-su was extremely vigilant against those seniors of the Floating Snow House. The first to arrive at the Floating Snow House were the 2 major leaders of the 100 Sword Sect and the Vase Mount House. The leader of the 100 Sword Sect was called Wu Xuanhu. Similar to Hu Qirui, the patriarch of the Vase Mound Venerable House, they were elite warriors at the peak of the common mysterious boundary. In the Xian Yuan Mound, such strength belonged to an exceptional existence. These 2 powerhouses were similar to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect and the Floating Snow House. They could also rank in the top 20. After the arrival of these 2 elite warriors, indeed, Lei Ming and Yin Guinan came together. These 2 were clearly old partners for many years. They seemed to enjoy coming together at any occasion. Immediately, the Floating Snow House became busy. With the arrival of these 4 major elite warriors, the entire Floating Snow House appeared resplendent. To the Floating Snow House, which was usually called a bitter cold place, with so many major figures arriving, to the Floating Snow House, it was both joyful and stressful. Currently, only the leader of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan had not arrived. Inside the main hall of the Floating Snow House, Lei Ming said with a thunderous voice, "Junior brother Murong, people of the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan would not dare to come if they know that Brother Guinan and I are here. I think let's start. This is the only matter It's a competition between the younger generation. Us seniors will not bully the younger generation. It would not matter even if people of the aspiring throne mountain did not come. Murong Qianji said with a smile, Senior Lei, there are still 2 days until the deadline. No need to rush. Whether he won or lost, there had to be a clear statement so that everyone would be convinced. Our floating snow house doesn't want to offend any of you. I'm indebted to you for your misplaced love. I don't want this matter to cause a conflict. Otherwise, my drifting snow house is too small to offend you guys. Yin Guinan smiled and said, Brother Morong, speaking of this matter, we are only here to join in the fun. Young people have such enthusiasm. Us old men are only here to join in the fun. Murong Qianji said seriously, Brother Guinan, Qianji is speaking the truth. That was why I invited all of you and requested for His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor, to send someone to oversee the situation. The purpose of this is to clearly express the drifting snow house's stance. No matter what, my floating snow house is not willing to be embroiled in this matter because of a dispute between young people. Brother Morong, don't worry. This matter will not affect your floating snow house. By the way, I heard that this time, Xian Wuji, the son of the Heavenly Emperor, has come to oversee the general situation. Brother Morong, you have a lot of face. Murong Qianji gave a long sigh. Perhaps His Majesty, the Heavenly Emperor, has attached great importance to this matter. Certainly His Majesty would not be willing to affect the stability of the Xian Yuan Mound because of this matter. In the midst of their conversation, suddenly, the familiar cry of a crane emerged from outside the floating snow house. The expression of Lei Ming and Yin Guinan was moved. His Majesty is here. Murong Qianji also heard the movement as he immediately led a group of higher-ups of the floating snow house to welcome him. Yin Guinan and the other 3 leaders did not dare to neglect him as they all went out to welcome him. Xian Wuji still appeared with the same lineup as when he had appeared at the Heavenly Punishing Villa. Behind him, there was still a group of men of sacrifice with unfathomable strength. It's an honor to meet with Prince Xian. Everyone went up to salute him respectfully. Displaying an extraordinary temperament, Xian Wuji waved his hand with a smile. Everyone, am I late? Lei Ming laughed. Of course not. There are people who are later than you. Of course, they are not here yet. Oh, there are people who are later? A trace of doubt flashed across Xian Wuji's face. Then, he understood something and laughed. They are from the aspiring throne Mountain Qin clan, right? Lei Ming said with a somewhat disdainful tone. Who else could it be? I think the aspiring throne mountain is determined to be a coward. Besides, to the aspiring throne Mountain Qin clan, this Qin Wushuang is insignificant. Those old foxes will not act without seeing the rabbit. Certainly, they will not come. Before he had finished speaking, a voice that sounded like rolling thunder roared from the sky. Little Lei Ming, is this how you talk behind people's backs? Like rolling thunder, this voice was extremely ear-piercing and soul-stirring. It made it difficult for people to breathe. One only saw red lights spread across the sky as they dropped to the ground. A barefoot man dressed in scarlet red clothing walked down on a red cloud. He sized Lei Ming up with a cold sneer and glared at him with provocative eyes. Lei Ming gave a snort. What are you putting on? Of course, this man from the red cloud was Qin Yunran, the second in command of the aspiring throne Mountain Qin clan. People had given him the nickname Madman Ran. This Qin Yunran would sometimes act crazily, and it seemed that he never understood the principle of restraining his emotions. This allowed him to have a unique reputation at the Xian Yuan Mound. Lei Ming was incredibly surprised. He didn't expect that the person who had come was not Qin Chongyang, but Qin Yunran. Before Qin Yunran, Lei Ming would not dare to act too presumptuous. It was because the strength of this Qin Yunran should be above him. Qin Yunran looked at Lei Ming and the others as if he was not mistaken. He called out to Xian Wuji with a laugh and said, Your Highness, it's good that you are taking charge of the general situation. Let these rascals not play any tricks, great. Xian Wuji appeared to be shrewd as he revealed a light smile. Chief Yunran, is rarely seen. This time, you have come to the floating snow house. It seems that the Qin clan is rather concerned about the matter with Qin Wushuang. Qin Yunran laughed. I am concerned about all disciples of the Qin clan. Of course, after all, this Qin Wushuang is somewhat special. Haha, your highness, let's talk inside. I have brought some good wine. Initially, I was going to use it as a betrothal gift. Now it seems that I must prepare another set of betrothal gifts. Haha, junior brother Murong, long time no see. You seem to have lost a lot of weight. What? Do you have a headache and cannot sleep when thinking about marrying off your daughter? No wonder Qin Yunran was called Madman Ran. His words appeared somewhat insane and would make people feel shocked. However, Qin Wushuang knew very well that this second chief was not as he appeared on the surface. Lei Ming said with a cold sneer, Madman Ran, most likely you don't need to prepare anything later. Oh, Qin Yunran glared at Lei Ming. It's because your Qin Wushuang will not stand out. The granddaughter of the floating snow house would not marry a nouveau riche from the human countries. Haha, Senior Lei, there will always be many jokes about toads wanting to eat swan meat in the world. You cannot speak too straightforwardly and hurt people's self-esteem. This Lei Ming and Yin Guinan were like two mad dogs with a strong desire for battle. When they saw Qin Yunran, their desire for battle was stimulated from their bones. Qin Yunran looked at these two as if he was looking at idiots. Your Highness, you say that once people become shameless, they are truly invincible. The name Nouveau Riche seems to suit you guys, right? How long have you stayed at the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates? You are mocking the disciples of the Qin clan. If I remember correctly, the bloodline of the Qin clan has been passed down since the immemorial era. We have always lived at the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. Although the branches of the Qin clan are spread across the world, the foundation of the disciples of the Qin clan always exists. What Nouveau Riche? I think it suits you guys better. Indeed, they were old enemies. Regardless of the situation, they would not forget to squeeze each other. Xi and Wuji revealed a light smile. Let me say something. You can solve your personal grudges in private. It doesn't matter what method you use. However, this is Lord Mu Rong's territory. You guys should not overpower the host, right? Besides, you're going to propose marriage to the floating snow house. You should not give them too bad of an impression, right? Or else, how could you make the floating snow house feel at ease to form a marriage alliance with you? As soon as Xn Wuji opened his mouth, finally, he had quelled a meaningless war of words. When they entered the main hall, Mu Rong Qinji went straight to the point and spoke of his thoughts and ideas in detail. Finally, he said, Everyone, this time, I have invited you guys because I have no other choice. If I had 5 daughters, then I would not have to spend so much effort. Unfortunately, my daughter is alone. However, there were a total of 5 people who came. Therefore, I can only use this method to test them. The one that can stand out will be a good match for my daughter. Xi and Wuji said with a smile. It's rare for Lord Mu Rong to be in such a refined mood. Everyone, if you have any different opinions, you can raise them now. If you don't have any opinions, then we will do as Lord Mu Rong said. Mu Rong Qinji said, I have already prepared 5 contracts and must be signed by the representatives of the 5 powerhouses. After all, this test still carries risks. At the Xian Yuan Mound, regardless of what you do, there will be some risks. If they cannot even bear this little risk, that means they are not worthy to be the role model for the young people of the Xian Yuan Mound. Junior brother Mu Rong, my heavenly punishing villa will not have any objections. You can sign this contract immediately. I have the same opinion as senior brother Guinan. It's the same, sign it all. Of course, the other 2 powerhouses would not have any different opinions. When it was Qin Yunran's turn, he shot a few glances at Yin Guinan and Lei Ming with a face full of smiles. He said with a smile, You must want me to sign it quickly, right? It's rare that you have the same thoughts as me. I also hope you can sign it quickly. After he had finished speaking, he let out a roaring laugh and signed that contract. Yin Guinan was stunned. He felt that Qin Yunran's words carried some hidden meaning, yet he could not figure it out. Inwardly, he was slightly hesitant. In the end, he did not suspect anything. When Mu Rong Qinji saw that they were all cooperating, he knew that at this point, the arrow was already knocked on the bow and must be released. When he saw that they had finished signing, he handed it to Xian Wuji. "Please take a look, Your Highness." Xian Wuji took it and read through it carefully. After confirming that there were no loopholes, he took it. Qin Wushuang took everything in. Murong Su's mood also became nervous following the arrival of everything. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 593. After everything was agreed upon, they did not linger and dashed to the back mountain directly. They stood on high ground and looked down at the boundless black Dead Sea. That ink-like water surface made one's scalp itch. The ink-black surface of the water rippled with layers of waves, making it even more frightening to watch. Murong Su could not refrain from grabbing Qin Wushuang's hand. She had repeatedly told herself that Brother Qin would make it and that there would not be any problems. However, when they truly arrived at this place described as the Black Dead Sea by the people of the sect, Murong Su could not but help but feel worried. Murong Qinji said with a grave expression, "Everyone, this black water is called the Black Dead Sea at my sect. It will be a great risk for everyone to go. If you return now, you still have time. Junior brother Murong, don't worry. Since the contract has been signed, who can go back on their words?" Xian Wuji said, "Lord Murong, the contract is not child's play. Our Xian Yuan Mound has always attached great importance to the contract. Please rest assured, since the Heavenly Emperor Mountain is involved in this matter, the floating snow house will stay out of it. Everything will be supervised by me. Regardless of the outcome, you must not vent your anger on the floating snow house. Everyone, do you have any objections?" Lei Ming said loudly, "Of course we have no objections. I am just afraid some people will have objections." As he said this, he shot a glance at Qin Yunran as if to demonstrate his power. Qin Yunran was even more hoodlum than Lei Ming as he said with a beaming smile, "Old Lei, are you old Yin?" Yin Guinan was much more composed than Lei Ming as he said with an indifferent tone, "It's useless to speak more, Zhuiyang, come here." Yin Zhuiyang walked over eagerly. Second suzerain. Initially, the higher-ups of the Heavenly Punishing Villa did not approve of you coming. However, it's not good to dampen your interest in the matters of young people. I will only say one thing. Since you are here, you must exert all your efforts and not lose the face of the Heavenly Punishing Villa. Yin Zhuiyang said seriously, "Of course." All the clans called their disciples to the side and began to instruct them seriously. Qin Yunran was rather open and honest. He threw a piece of armor that was as light as a feather to Qin Wushuang. "Wushuang, this is for you. In the water, this armor can guarantee that you will walk as if you were walking on flat ground. Your speed will not be affected by water pressure or water momentum." Qin Wushuang took it. Qin Yunran laughed loudly and said, "Do well. I believe that you will definitely give everyone a pleasant surprise." After saying that, Qin Yunran chuckled and asked, "Lord Murong, since everyone is going down for the same goal, I only have one question. After entering the black water, is any method allowed?" Lord Murong looked at Xian Wuji for clearly. He was seeking his opinion. Xian Wuji said with a light smile, "When they are at the bottom of the water, it would be like a fish returning to the sea. We cannot restrict them from above. It's better to let them do whatever they want." Qin Yunran's smile did not change as he whispered, "That's right. That means regardless of the methods they use, even if they attack each other, it is allowed, right? Once you enter the black water, life and death will depend on fate. Dying in the black water is not much different than dying at the hands of your competitors." Xian Wuji said with an indifferent tone that did not contain a trace of human emotion. Lei Ming said with a cold sneer, "Madman Ran, if you are scared, advise that kid to give up. There are still 4 warriors willing to go down. They are all loyal pursuers of Miss Murong." Qin Yunran roared with laughter. "Old man Lei, you must be feeling proud now. With 4 against 1, you will not lose, right? After he had finished speaking, he turned to tease Qin Wushuang. Wushuang, did you see? If you do not work hard, most likely you will not be able to come up after entering this black water. Qin Wushuang revealed a light smile and did not speak a word. He shot a glance at Lei Jiao and the other 3. Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qiulan were doing better. At least they were restraining themselves and did not make a sound. Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang's expressions were filled with undisguised pride. Clearly, their expression was like a hunter inspecting their prey. They were determined to get it. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang only sneered coldly. The 2 leaders of the 100-Sword sect and the venerable house of Vase Mound immediately explained, Chief Qin, our 2 houses definitely did not mean it this way. Qin Yunran still revealed his signature exaggerated laughter. I say, even if you did, I would not mind. This is a matter for the young people. Let them take care of it. The more relaxed Qin Yunran's words sounded, the more Yin Guinan felt something was wrong inwardly. He always felt that this Qin Yunran seemed determined to win for sure. He was not worried about Qin Wushuang at all. However, according to their speculation and investigation, indeed, this Qin Wushuang only possessed the strength of the refined void martial stage. Certainly, he would not surpass the profound void martial stage. For young disciples at the peak of the profound void martial stage like Yin Jiang and Lei Jiao, this kind of cultivation was not a threat at all. That Qin Wushuang had a suspected supreme Dao weapon. So did the heavenly punishing Villa and the sound of thunder sect. Naturally, they had to be armed. With a supreme Dao weapon against a supreme Dao weapon, they could not think of any reason why the 4 of them could not take care of this Qin Wushuang. However, Qin Yunran's confidence made Yin Guinan feel bursts of hidden worry. Ever since the sound of thunder sect and the heavenly punishing Villa left the heavenly Emperor Gate, they were already deeply afraid of Qin Wushuang. After all, the limelight that Qin Wushuang had shown at the heavenly Emperor Gate indeed made them very afraid. From Qin Wushuang, they felt an extremely powerful potential. If this young man was not eliminated as soon as possible, he would definitely be a great danger. After planning, they felt that this Murong Su was a breakthrough point. Only through the floating snow house could they find a breakthrough point in a short period of time to deal with Qin Wushuang. Therefore, the situation where the young people of the 4 forces came together to propose marriage appeared. When they laid out such a trap, they naturally would not exclude those idiots. Those who were sent were the absolute elites of the sections. Whether it was talent or combat accomplishment, they were absolutely the best among their peers. Coupled with the supreme Dao weapon, no matter how they deduced, they felt that there was no problem in eliminating Qin Wushuang. This Qin Wushuang's strength lay in that supreme Dao bow and arrow. As long as the power of the bow and arrow could be reduced, the difficulty of dealing with Qin Wushuang would be greatly reduced. It had to be said that they had put in a lot of effort to deal with Qin Wushuang. They had also studied all of Qin Wushuang's combat cases. After synthesizing these conclusions and formulating this plan, they were really determined to succeed. All aspects of the preparation work had been completed. The 5 forces did not raise any objection. For the sake of fairness, the 5 people entered the water at exactly the same time. The only difference was that they entered the water at different locations. No one knew the exact location of the immemorial demonic dragon's base. Therefore, entering the water at different locations was not an issue of unfairness. The location that Qin Wushuang was arranged to enter was closer to the north, and the terrain was very steep. At this moment, Murong Su no longer avoided arousing suspicion. He escorted Qin Wushuang to the shore and held Qin Wushuang's hand tightly. The chilly wind blew, causing their clothes to flutter. Big brother Qin, you have to be careful. No matter how strong Murong Su was, he could not help but choke with sobs at this moment. Qin Wushuang patted Murong Su's back lightly and hugged Murong Su on his shoulder. He whispered, Su'er, I promise you, only one person will come out of this black dead sea. That person must be me. Murong Su's eyes were filled with tears. He could only nod continuously. Qin Wushuang hardened his heart turned around and walked down. Murong Su disregarded everything and yelled, "Big Brother Qin, I will wait for you for 3 months. If you don't come up, I will also jump down. If the one who comes up is someone else, I will also jump down." Inwardly, everyone was shocked. Clearly, they were stunned by Murong Su's righteousness. Murong Qinji shook his head and sighed. He did not know whether he was happy or sad. He used this method to test them. Originally, he wanted them to back off. He did not expect that the sound of Thunder's sect and the heavenly punishing villa would find an opportunity to make a fuss. In the end, Murong Qinji's heart was still biased towards his daughter. He hoped that his daughter's life could be entrusted to a man that she liked. And Qin Wushuang was naturally the perfect choice. Even Murong Qinji had to admit that Qin Wushuang was a rare talent among the younger generation. However, facing the pressure of the 4 major forces, he could not refuse. As the matter had developed to this point, there was no room to maneuver. Suddenly, Xian Wuji said meaningfully, "Lord Murong, your daughter and that Qin Wushuang do have deep feelings for each other. It makes one sigh with emotion." Strangely, Murong Qinji did not make a sound. He only kept shaking his head, and his expression was filled with bitterness and helplessness. Lei Ming said loudly, "Your Highness, surely that Qin Wushuang knows some seductive techniques. Or else, with Miss Murong's honorable identity, how could she have set her eyes on a poor kid from the human countries?" Xian Wuji laughed. Of course, he remembered that his current identity was a supervisor and not a friend of Lei Ming's group. Naturally, he would not express his position. Qin Yinran stood there as steady as Mount Tai. From beginning to end, his expression carried that unfathomable smile. Initially, Qin Yinran was born with this smile. However, in the eyes of Yin Guinan, regardless of how he looked at it, he felt that this place was full of conspiracy. After Qin Wushuang had entered the water, his entire body immediately felt a burst of coldness invade him. Fortunately, he wore 2 layers of armor. One was the azure armor, and the other was the soft armor gifted by Chief Qin Yinran. However, to Qin Wushuang, this layer of soft armor was only the icing on the cake. His azure armor possessed astonishing defensive power against water and fire. He did not even need this soft armor to walk with ease under the water. It was as if he was walking on flat ground. Qin Wushuang knew that after he had entered the water, those 4 people would certainly surround him without hesitation. At this moment, the game had only just begun. Naturally, Qin Wushuang would not fight with them with real swords and spears in such a short time. Only he kept diving. To start the battle, he must at least choose the battlefield and formulate the strategy. He was not optimistic to start the battle blindly and fight 1 against 4. Clearly, it was unrealistic to deal with 4 people at the same time, especially that Lei Jiao and Yin Zhiyong. They appear to have the typical appearance of a major powerhouse. However, these 2 were definitely not simple. They would never be as brainless as they appeared. Certainly, the sound of Thunder's sect and the heavenly punishing villa had chosen these 2 and not the others. As Qin Wushuang thought, with an apprehensive expression, he had already dived to a position of more than 300 meters. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 594. After reaching this position, Qin Wushuang decided not to dive down for the time being. Instead, he began to move horizontally, constantly diving towards the place where the water was fierce. Under the Black Dead Sea, there was indeed an undercurrent. From time to time, there would be a clump of seaweed here, a school of fierce fish there, and various spiritual beasts in the water. At a depth of 100 feet, they had already begun to become active. Swimming like this, unknowingly, 7 days had passed. Qin Wushuang kept track of the time at all times, because Murong Su had said that if he did not return in 3 months, he would jump down after him. Naturally, this was not what Qin Wushuang wanted to see. In these 7 days, Qin Wushuang was confident that at least temporarily he had gotten rid of the four people's tracking. Most importantly, Qin Wushuang had a very important tool in his hands that he had not used before. Before he set off, he had already put this tool to use. This tool was the observant finger jade plate that Luo Tontian wanted very much but never got. Lu Xianlu had given this tool to Qin Wushuang, and Qin Wushuang had not had a chance to use it. Now, this tool finally came in handy. Before he set off, he had secretly collected the spiritual power and divine sense of the four people and inserted it into the jade plate. As long as they approached Qin Wushuang's area, the jade plate would give a hint. This way, it was equivalent to Qin Wushuang taking advantage of a situation. At least, he did not have to worry that the four people would suddenly appear in front of him and attack him. Eliminating this possibility, Qin Wushuang was not in a hurry now. He planned to temper his cultivation in this black water, and when the conditions were right, he would naturally advance to the void transformation stage. Because he felt that the spiritual power in the depths of the Black Dead Sea was very turbulent, and it was a suitable place for a breakthrough. Since he wanted to break through, he naturally had to summon spiritual beasts to protect him. Among the 8 spiritual beasts that could be summoned, except for the pure, ultra-precious pig, who was very afraid of water, the others were not as convenient to move underwater as on land, but there was not much pressure. The 2 most powerful spiritual beasts in the water were at the peak of the common mysterious realm. They were the 2 most powerful spirit beasts in the sealed scroll. They were the sky-swallowing lion dragon and the dark mysterious snake. One was a mutated dragon, and the other was a black snake. They were all very good at underwater work. However, for the peak of the common mysterious stage, Qin Wushuang could only summon it when he was at the perfect void martial stage. For your information, he was only about to break through to the profound void martial stage. Above the profound void martial stage was the perfect void martial stage. Qin Wushuang did not intend to rush things. He was very clearly aware that so long as he possessed the strength of the void interpretation stage, then he would be completely capable of dealing with those 4 people. Even if they possessed divine Tao weapons, it would still be nothing difficult. The 7 spirit beasts each had their own tasks. They hid in the surrounding waters to protect Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang, on the other hand, was hiding in the depths of a clump of seaweed, making his final dash. This time, Qin Wushuang did not find it too difficult. Different than any other times in the past, Qin Wushuang had reached the peak of the transformation void martial stage. The reason why he did not advance to the profound void martial stage was because he respected the teachings of the 2 chiefs and wanted to consolidate his stage. Now, after this period of consolidation, Qin Wushuang knew that the time was enough. Now, it was neither too early nor too late to advance to the profound void martial stage. It could be said that it was just right. Breaking through before the battle would be extremely beneficial to the increase of morale. Naturally, Qin Wushuang had his own reasons for making such a choice. Inside his dantian, Qin Wushuang's primordial spirit was like a constantly forming fetus. It was becoming more and more substantial. Due to the increase of his stage, this primordial spirit also continued to display vigorous vitality. Qin Wushuang kept attacking his dantian and stimulating this primordial spirit that belonged to him. Void martial stage. This was a realm that Qin Wushuang could not even imagine when he first made his debut. At this moment, it was actually becoming clearer and clearer. Although Qin Wushuang was in the extremely cold Black Dead Sea, at this moment, his entire body felt a wave of heat that made his entire body feel like it was about to explode. This heat came from his dantian, causing his entire body to turn red from the heat. The surrounding water also began to change, and bubbles began to appear. Roar! Qin Wushuang let out a light shout. A stream of turbid air gushed out from his mouth and shot out. It condensed into a water arrow and shot out. Whoosh! This water arrow just happened to hit a school of fish that was swimming past them, instantly turning them into dregs. Qin Wushuang opened his eyes and looked at everything in front of him in disbelief. Then, He looked at his entire body. Void martial stage. Qin Wushuang chewed on this word softly. A mysterious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. After entering the void martial stage, Qin Wushuang's temperament finally underwent an earth-shaking change. This change was a major turning point from being ostentatious to being reserved. At the void martial stage, cultivators had already begun to get rid of the restrictions of their outer appearance. They could completely turn their outer appearance into nothingness. Even if their inner heart was filled with killing intent, their outer appearance could still turn into a calm and tranquil appearance. Moreover, at the void martial stage, it was very difficult to judge the performance of one's strength from their outer appearance. Void martial stage, as the name implied, also allowed one to understand the profoundness within. Qin Wushuang only felt that his entire body had become much lighter, and he himself was like a speck of dust in this world, completely integrating his mortal body into the void. This was the principle of the void martial stage. After Qin Wushuang entered the void martial stage, he consolidated for a few more days. Counting with his fingers, almost half a month had passed. Qin Wushuang smiled slightly and took out the sealed scroll. This time, he wanted to see what the two summoned void martial stage spirit beasts looked like. Two void martial stage spirit beasts, purple pupil golden bull and burning sky explosive tiger. These two spirit beasts could be said to be the synonym of tyranny. Among the 12 sealed spirit beasts, they were the best at close combat and frontal attacks. Moreover, they were also the ones that could go berserk the most easily. Once they went berserk, the battle potential of these spirit beasts at the void martial stage could even be compared to the experts at the Tongxian stage. The appearance of these two spirit beasts in human form was much taller than the other spirit beasts. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was overjoyed when he saw this. These two spirit beasts at the void martial stage might not be of much use for the time being. But in the future, when he really encountered a tough battle, the power of these two spirit beasts would be completely revealed. Qin Wushuang drove all the spirit beasts back into the sealed scroll. Because walking underwater, he did not want these spirit beasts to consume their physical strength and spiritual power for no reason. It would be the same to summon them when needed in battle. Now, letting them stay in the sealed scroll obediently and biding their time was also a good choice. After doing all this, Qin Wushuang began to activate the observant finger jade plate. Since the preparation work had reached this step, the next step was to start the counterattack. Through the observant finger jade plate, Qin Wushuang discovered that these four people were very far away from him. They were not in the water area of more than 100 zhang. Looking at the situation, they should have already gone deeper into the water area. Qin Wushuang revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth. It seemed that his little trick had indeed fooled this group of people. According to normal thinking, they would indeed think that once Qin Wushuang entered the water, he would definitely dive deeper into the water and strive to find the egg of the demonic dragon at the first possible moment. According to normal logic, this was indeed the case. However, Qin Wushuang was not very concerned about the egg of the demonic dragon. Moreover, he did not believe that he would have such good luck to be able to find the egg of the demonic dragon. After all, the floating snow house had been here for thousands of years. It was impossible that they had not entered the Blackwater domain. How could they, who had barged in for the first time, obtain something that had not been found for thousands of years? In terms of probability, it was not very likely. Therefore, Qin Wushuang's goal was not to find the egg of the demonic dragon. At least, his primary goal was not to find the bloodline of the demonic dragon. As long as he killed these four people, all disputes would be resolved. At least he would be in an invincible position. As for the bloodline of the demonic dragon, it would be good if he could find it. If he could not, Qin Wushuang would not force it. He did not think that his 3 months of time could compare to the floating snow house's thousands of years of luck. Qin Wushuang began to dive deeper into the water area. He discovered that the four people did not always travel together. Currently, the spiritual perception of the four people was clearly pointing to 4 different directions. However, It was easy to analyze that the four of them had formed a search circle from the inside to the outside. Without a doubt, these four people were indeed searching for him. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang sneered. Everything was within his calculations. He was not surprised by the people of the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect. However, that venerable house of Vase Mound and the Hundred Sword sect had also come to join the fun. It seemed that these two major powerhouses were the same as the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. They were all puppet powerhouses that were at the mercy of the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect. To the aspiring Throne Mountain Qin clan, such powerhouses would be a threat. Even without this layer of collusion, since these four people had targeted Qin Wushuang, how could Qin Wushuang be merciful? When he had dived to a depth of more than 300 meters, Qin Wushuang immediately sensed the different feeling brought by this dividing line. It was not surprising that the floating snow house had always prohibited their young disciples from diving to a depth of 300 meters. After 300 meters, he sensed that the water pressure and the trajectory of the movements of the spiritual qi were completely different than above 300 meters. If above 300 meters there were only ordinary undercurrent movements, then below 300 meters it could be said that the undercurrent was surging. It would have been alright if it was just an undercurrent. Below 300 meters, various powerful underwater spiritual beasts had already become active. The most fatal part was that the underwater spiritual beasts excelled at camouflage. Sometimes you would think it was a pile of rotten wood, sometimes you would think it was a cluster of reefs, and sometimes you would think it was a ball of seaweed. However, in the end, you would realize that these were all camouflaged by the underwater spiritual beasts. At this moment, Qin Wushuang's advantage of being proficient in the beast language was displayed. On one hand, he could communicate with these underwater spiritual beasts. On the other hand, he could also gain beneficial information by communicating with the spiritual beasts. When the underwater spiritual beasts saw that Qin Wushuang was proficient in the beast language and that there was a surge of powerful beast presence from Qin Wushuang, it made them feel that Qin Wushuang was not someone to be trifled with. Naturally, this powerful presence was emitted by the sealed scroll. This sealed scroll possessed an innate, intimidating power to the spiritual beasts. The number of chapters in the previous chapter is wrong again. It should be chapter 0599. This chapter is chapter 0600. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 595. Although the Black Dead Sea was a forbidden area of the floating snow house, it was indeed incomparably dangerous. However, there were very few spirit beasts that had reached the exquisite, mysterious boundary stage. Of course, it was not that there were none. Especially in the boundless water below 5,000 feet, it was rumored that there were spirit beasts that had reached the divine Tao stage. Of course, the water below 5,000 feet was not a place where ordinary human cultivators could hide. 5,000 feet of water was the limit of the Black Dead Sea. Even someone as strong as the floating snow house lord, who had the ability to dive down, was unable to withstand the water pressure below 5,000 feet. That kind of pressure was like carrying a mountain. Even Mu Rong Qianji, who was at the peak of the common mysterious stage, was unable to withstand it, not to mention the other clansmen whose cultivation was weaker than him. At this moment, Qin Wushuang was between 3,000 and 400 feet. This position was also the position of those four fellows. This Black Dead Sea was more than 10,000 miles of water. To find someone, although it was not like finding a needle in a haystack, it was still very difficult. Especially the situation under the water, it was very complicated. It was a completely different concept from a land. Qin Wushuang activated the observant finger jade plate and slowly adjusted it. Suddenly, Qin Wushuang felt a divine sense becoming active on the jade plate. Moreover, it was swimming towards his direction. Qin Wushuang recognized this divine sense. It belonged to Wu Dingyuan of the Hundred Swords sect. Qin Wushuang looked at the other 3 divine senses. They did not seem to have any intention to surround him. If that was the case, this should be a coincidence. Of course, Qin Wushuang did not dare to be careless. He confirmed it again and finally came to the conclusion that it was indeed Wu Dingyuan alone. Qin Wushuang thought for a moment, and a bold idea appeared in his heart. He took out the sealed scroll and summoned the Moon Palace Jade Hare. "Master, are you going to make another puppet?" The Moon Palace Jade Hare chuckled. Its expression was somewhat treacherous. Qin Wushuang said, "Jade Hare, is there any way to make the other party be controlled by the poison without fighting?" "There are many ways." When Moon Palace Jade Hare talked about using poison, it was clear and logical. For example, we can control a group of underwater spirit beasts and put goo poison on their teeth. As long as we bite them once, they will listen to us obediently. Also, for example, sneak attacks with arrows, charms, or anything else. When Qin Wushuang heard this, he already had some ideas in his heart. He began to look for favorable terrain and waited for Wu Dingyuan to take the bait. On the other hand, Wu Dingyuan was searching carefully. Inwardly, he had already cursed all of Qin Wushuang's ancestors. After searching for more than half a month, there was still no news. This made Wu Dingyuan feel very depressed. He even felt that his family should not have reached this cooperation with the Sound of Thunder sect or the Heavenly Punishing Villa. Dealing with Qin Wushuang was really a tough job. His hard work over the past half a month had proven this point. Suddenly, Wu Dingyuan's footsteps stopped. He activated his divine sense and began to explore ahead. In the water ahead, there was a huge shell around a cluster of seaweed. It was slightly opened. Around the shell, there was a sacred radiance, which made Wu Dingyuan's heart tremble. It is often said that there are pearls in the shell. The pearls of the black water in such a deep sea must not be inferior. I might as well go and take a look. Although he had made this decision, Wu Dingyuan did not dare to lower his guard. He knew that after half a month, there was still no news of Qin Wushuang. In this hunt, it was still unknown who would be hunting who. Wu Dingyuan was very careful. He stopped behind that huge shell and observed from afar. That shell was as big as a few people. If it was completely opened, even if 4 or 5 people slept inside, it would still be spacious. At that moment, the shell was half closed. Inside the shell, there was a dazzling light shining from it. Wu Dingyuan said in his heart, "If there are pearls in this shell, then the quality must be very good. If I don't take what the heavens give me, I will be met with disaster." Wu Dingyuan took out a spirit beast sealing talisman and rolled it up to summon a blue spirit bird the size of Skylark. The bird flew towards the shell. The speed of this little blue spiritual bird was extremely fast. Like an arrow, it shot in front of the shell. Wu Dingyuan communicated with the spirit beast and controlled it from a distance. The spirit beast observed around the shell for a moment and circled around it a few times. Then it said to Wu Dingyuan, "Master, there are no traps around this shell. Please don't worry." Wu Dingyuan was relieved. He quickly rushed to the shell and looked inside. He saw that the pearl in the shell was the size of a fist. It was lying inside the shell, emitting a dazzling radiance. Wu Dingyuan was shocked. This pearl is very strange. How can an ordinary pearl be so big? Wu Dingyuan suddenly thought of a wonderful name. Could it be the egg of a demon dragon? Ha! When did I, Wu Dingyuan, have such good luck? But seeing such a pearl, it was impossible for him not to be moved. His first thought was to take it for himself. No matter if it was a pearl or not, it was definitely not an ordinary item. It was silvery white like a gem, lying there quietly. As long as he reached out, he would be able to get it. But Wu Dingyuan was still not in a hurry to make a move. He still had not dispelled all his worries. At this moment, the blue spirit beast suddenly warned, "Master, it seems that someone is approaching this region of water." Almost at the same time, Yin Jueyang also asked with his divine sense, "Brother Dingyuan, did you discover anything new? Is there any movement?" Wu Dingyuan tried hard to calm the excitement in his heart. Seeing such a big pearl, it must be a treasure of the essence of heaven and earth. Naturally, He could not share it with others. He immediately replied, "Brother Zhuiyang, there is no movement on my side for now." Thinking of this, Wu Dingyuan no longer hesitated. He reached out and took out the pearl from the shell. He placed it on his palm and could not bear to put it down. The shell did not show any reaction when the pearl was taken away. It was still opening and closing. Wu Dingyuan kept the pearl with him and did not stay any longer. He did not want others to know that he had picked up a treasure here. "Brother Dingyuan, you are in such a hurry. Where are you going?" Wu Dingyuan had not taken a few steps when a melodious voice suddenly sounded in his ears. It was so crisp and so calm. Hearing this voice, Wu Dingyuan was shocked. This voice was obviously Qin Wushuang, whom they had been searching for a long time. He was actually near this region of water. Wu Dingyuan was about to use his divine sense to send a message when his mind suddenly turned into a paste. His entire consciousness suddenly became chaotic. It was as if his divine sense was surrounded by a powerful force. Qin Wushuang this. Wu Dingyuan's mind was in a mess. In an instant, he lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, Qin Wushuang was already standing beside him. Wu Dingyuan's mind was empty. He looked a little dazed as he called out, "Master!" It turned out that the so-called pearl was just a piece of processed crystal that Qin Wushuang had placed on it. He had also imbued it with powerful spiritual energy, making it look full of spiritual energy and shining brightly. At the scene, only the shell was real. However, Qin Wushuang had used it to attract Wu Dingyuan's greed. He had successfully sent the venomous insect into Wu Dingyuan's dantian. This venomous insect was not an ordinary thing. Once it invaded, it would be hard to escape unless the antidote was obtained. How could Wu Dingyuan resist? Naturally, Qin Wushuang and Moon Palace Jade Hair had done the same thing. He had become Qin Wushuang's first sacrifice. It was not that Qin Wushuang did not want to kill Wu Dingyuan. The reason why he wanted him alive and wanted to make him into a puppet was naturally for a purpose. At any time, a dead person could not be more useful than a living person whose divine sense was controlled by him. Qin Wushuang's move was to use Wu Dingyuan as bait to lure the other 3 people over and capture them all in one fell swoop. If Wu Dingyuan was killed, no matter how strong Qin Wushuang was, he would not be able to control Wu Dingyuan's communication jade token. The communication jade token was something that belonged to everyone. No matter how powerful one was, it was impossible to use someone else's communication jade token and imitate the other party's divine sense exactly. Theoretically speaking, this was simply impossible. No matter how similar the divine sense was, there would be flaws in the end. What Qin Wushuang wanted was a flawless effect. Controlling a puppet was the most feasible choice. Other than the puppet's freedom and well-being controlled, nothing else had changed. Therefore, it would not arouse any suspicion when using its own communication jade token to contact its companions. As long as Wu Dingyuan made good use of it, it was not impossible to lure them over one by one and eliminate them one by one. Qin Wushuang knew that Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qiulan were better. Yin Zhuiyang and Lei Jiao must have supreme Dao weapons. If the other party had supreme Dao weapons, it would not be a wise choice to fight them head-on. Because if he fought them head-on, he would most likely be surrounded and beaten up. The graceful spiritual Bao was only good at long-range attacks and close combat. If the other party each had a supreme Dao weapon, it would be a nightmare for Qin Wushuang. Therefore, in this battle, he could only use his wits and not his strength. Fortunately, Qin Wushuang had enough trump cards at this moment. Also, with his endless skills, it was not impossible to defeat the 4 of them one by one. At least, Wu Dingyuan had fallen into his trap and was under his control. A good start was half the battle. Although Qin Wushuang knew that he could not use this move forever, he knew that he could not use it forever. However, with Wu Dingyuan as a living puppet, everything would be much easier. Wu Dingyuan quickly sent a message to Hu Qiulan. Tell him that you saw my traces in the waters 300 miles to the west. Ask him to come to the scene quickly. Qin Wushuang decided to control the 2 burdens, Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qiulan. In this way, It would be easier to deal with one of the other two. As long as one of the two was eliminated, the remaining one would not live long. Qin Wushuang was afraid that they would join hands. If he could defeat them one by one, the Black Dead Sea would be the burial ground of these four bastards. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 596. Among the four of them, Hu Qilan was the closest to Wu Dingyuan. Through the observant finger jade plate, Qin Wushuang could easily determine this. Currently, Wu Dingyuan had completely become Qin Wushuang's puppet. Of course, he obeyed his orders and sent his spiritual perception to Hu Qilan. He claimed that he had grasped Qin Wushuang's whereabouts and asked Hu Qilan to come to his aid quickly. Hu Qilan immediately responded, "Brother Wu, don't beat the grass to scare the snake. Did you inform those two?" Wu Dingyuan said, "Not yet. I will contact them immediately." Hu Qilan became more cautious. "Brother Wu, don't be in a rush. Don't inform them for now. Wait for me to go over, and we will discuss the details." This made Qin Wushuang somewhat surprised. What kind of wishful thinking was this Hu Qilan planning? Initially, this Hu Qilan knew that Qin Wushuang had a supreme Dao weapon. He was extremely fascinated by this weapon. For your information, at the Xian Yuan Mound, supreme Dao weapons were extremely rare. Even a major powerhouse like the Hu Qilan Venerable House did not have a supreme Dao weapon. Only those major sects that possessed the immemorial inheritance and those first-rate powerhouses possess supreme Dao weapons. Among the second-rate powerhouses, only a few of them possessed a supreme Dao weapon. Once they possessed it, they would have more authority to speak at the Xian Yuan Mound. Initially, the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect was in a passive position because they did not possess a single supreme Dao weapon. They had to seek help from the Heavenly Punishing Villa and the Sound of Thunder sect. This Hu Qilan was extremely shrewd as he knew that to acquire the supreme Dao weapon, it was a great opportunity before him. If he did not grasp this opportunity, he would not have a better one in the future. Although Qin Wushuang, who possessed a supreme Dao weapon, was extremely difficult to deal with and had caused the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect to suffer a great loss, many people had investigated thoroughly. The Heavenly Luo Daoist sect had suffered a great loss, not because they could not defeat Qin Wushuang, but because they had been schemed against by Qin Wushuang. For a battle under such circumstances, Hu Qilan believed that he still had a chance. However, if Yin Juiyang and Lei Jiao were to get involved, it would not have anything to do with him. There was the so-called seeking riches and honor in the midst of danger. If he wanted to seize the supreme Dao weapon, he had to take some risks. Or else, with the risk of offending the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan and coming to this dangerous Blackwater, could it be that they were only going to be cannon fodder for those two powerhouses? Although on the surface, they were indeed here to assist, Hu Qilan was still dissatisfied with the situation in his heart. This was why he had asked Wu Dingyuan not to inform Yin Juiyang and Lei Jiao for now. He was full of ambition for Qin Wushuang's supreme Dao weapon. What he didn't know was that Qin Wushuang, whom he was wholeheartedly plotting against, was setting up a death trap, waiting for him to fall into it. After 2 hours, Hu Qilan had already arrived near the agreed location and contacted Wu Dingyuan. Wu Dingyuan did not reveal any flaws and told him the exact location. Hu Qilan was overjoyed and quickly swam towards Wu Dingyuan. Seeing that Wu Dingyuan was waiting for him behind a hidden reef, he quickly rushed over. "Brother Wu, how is it?" Wu Dingyuan said, "I've been following him in secret. He shouldn't be more than 200 li away from here." "Brother Hu Qilan, why didn't you inform Yin Juiyang and Lei Jiao?" Hu Qilan assessed the surrounding environment with vigilance, as if he was afraid that Yin Juiyang and Lei Jiao would suddenly appear. "Brother Wu, to speak from the bottom of my heart, do you think that with all our hard work, could it be we are really going to pave the way for those two powerhouses? Do they hold a grudge against the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? We don't. We were invited by them for no good reason. It's an arduous and thankless task, not to mention the slightest benefit, We could lose our lives at any moment. Don't you think it's unfair? Wu Dingyuan did not know what Hu Qiulan meant. He remained silent and only looked at Hu Qiulan. When Hu Qiulan saw Wu Dingyuan's somewhat strange expression, he knew that most likely Wu Dingyuan was moved by his words. However, because he was afraid of those two powerhouses, he did not dare to speak. Brother Wu, let me make a bad example. If you and I were to lose our lives here, at most, those two powerhouses would only say something regretful. If we die, we would have died in vain. If we kill that Qin Wushuang, the reputation would be taken by Yin Zhuiyang and Lei Jiao. At most, we would have an empty reputation as an accomplice. What benefits would there be? Brother Hu Qiu, what do you mean? Wu Dingyuan asked with a smile. On the way here, I have been thinking that this is an opportunity. If the two of us work together to deal with Qin Wushuang, we might not have 100% confidence, but we would at least have a 50% chance. Doesn't that Qin Wushuang have a powerful bow and arrow? If we could ambush him and fight him in close combat, he would not be able to use his bow and arrow. It would not be impossible to kill Qin Wushuang. Brother Hu Qiu, even if we kill Qin Wushuang, would the outside world recognize our contribution? Wu Dingyuan asked with a smile. Hu Qiulan sneered and said, we don't need the recognition of the outside world. In fact, we don't even need anyone's recognition. It would be best if no one knew about this. Brother Wu, are you not envious of Qin Wushuang's endless treasures and remarkable abilities? This Qin Wushuang must have many treasures on him. If we could kill him, it would definitely be a windfall. Are you not tempted by the supreme Dao weapon? Wu Dingyuan smiled and said, tempted? Brother Hu Qiu, if we really kill that Qin Wushuang, how would we split the supreme Dao weapon? You can't have two of them, right? As for how to split the supreme Dao weapon, this is a matter between us. We can discuss it slowly after this matter is done. However, once this opportunity is lost, it will not come again. Wu Dingyuan smiled and said, that's right. This opportunity will not come again once it is lost. As he said this, the corner of Wu Dingyuan's mouth revealed a trace of a meaningful smile. Seeing this strange smile, Hu Qiulan's heart skipped a beat. He faintly felt that something was wrong, and his scalp became numb. Brother Wu, Wu Dingyuan said indifferently, Hu Qiulan, thank you for your cooperation. You are not Wu Dingyuan. Hu Qiulan screamed, and all the hair on his body stood up. He wanted to turn around and run away. At this moment, a golden light suddenly pressed down from above Wu Dingyuan. When this golden light shot out, its power was so great that it was as if the sky was falling and the earth was collapsing. It pressed down fiercely. This pressure was like the collapse of a mountain. Hu Qiulan was shot by this golden light and could not move at all. It was as if he was suddenly nailed to the ground. His eyes suddenly exploded and protruded outwards like a dead fish's eyes. The hands of the Wu Dingyuan in front of him were like blooming orchids. His fingertips shot out continuously, and 3 swift and fierce coagulated swords shot out directly and pierced through Hu Qiulan's forehead. Hu Qiulan did not expect that he would die in such a cowardly way. That Wu Dingyuan raised his hand and wiped his face. Another appearance appeared. It was Qin Wushuang's face. Naturally, it was Qin Wushuang in disguise. Qin Wushuang inherited 6 treasures from Lu Xianlu. One of them was the Heart Illusion Mask. This mask could change one's appearance at will. Therefore, changing into a Wu Dingyuan was as easy as blowing off dust. Although Hu Qiulan was full of ambition and had a meticulous mind, in the end, he didn't know that Qin Wushuang had such skills. He could transform into Wu Dingyuan and even use Wu Dingyuan's identity to send his spiritual perception to him. This simply overturned his common sense. He died with his eyes wide open. Hu Qiulan could be considered to have died with his eyes wide open. A moment ago, he was still ambitiously planning to deal with Qin Wushuang. Now he had become a cold corpse. Until his death, he did not understand that Wu Dingyuan did not die at all. He was only controlled by Qin Wushuang's divine venomous poison and became a puppet. After getting rid of Hu Qiulan's corpse, Qin Wushuang took off all of Hu Qiulan's clothes and accessories. With a shake of his body, he became Hu Qiulan again. At this very moment, Qin Wushuang had disappeared in the black water. When Wu Dingyuan saw Qin Wushuang, who had changed into Hu Qiulan, he was also dumbfounded. "Master, your disguise is simply unimaginable. I am so familiar with Hu Qiulan, but I can't see any flaws." Qin Wushuang smiled faintly. "If you are not a supreme Dao expert, you won't be able to see through it. Only the eyesight of a supreme Dao expert would be able to see through the trick." Wu Dingyuan gasped in admiration and asked worriedly, "Master, I have heard of your means and supernatural powers. After leaving the black water, will you kill me to silence me? You want to live?" Qin Wushuang asked with a cold smile. Wu Dingyuan's face was pale, and he nodded. "I am willing to be your loyal dog for the rest of my life." Qin Wushuang smiled faintly. "Very good. To speak the truth, I don't plan to kill you. However, since you have no grudge with the Qin clan, you want to get involved. This is the evil you have created. Initially, you would have died without a doubt. However, since you want a way to live, all right, I will give you a way to live." Qin Wushuang said coldly. "However, have you ever thought that if all three of them are dead and you get out alive, will the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect let you go?" Wu Dingyuan mumbled, "I already thought about it. In the worst case, I will withdraw from it. This way, they will only think that I am greedy for life and afraid of death. Certainly, they will not suspect me." This was a feasible method. However, which of those supreme Dao elite warriors were not experienced in the world? At the very least, he still had this level of sensitivity. Whether or not he could deceive them would depend on this guy's acting skills. However, Qin Wushuang knew clearly that killing this Wu Dingyuan would not bring him any benefits. Keeping Wu Dingyuan would be a very good informant. After taking care of Hu Qiulan, he had taken care of half of the four opponents. Next, Qin Wushuang's target was one of Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang. "Master, in terms of strength alone, Lei Jiao is about the same as Yin Zhuiyang. However, Lei Jiao has a supreme Dao weapon with super powerful defense. To make a move, you must make a move on him first. Or else, after taking out Yin Zhuiyang, he will certainly be alert. When he is alert, it will be difficult to chase after him. It's only feasible to kill Lei Jiao when he is not alert." Wu Dingyuan's words gave Qin Wushuang some hints. If the other party's supreme Dao weapon possessed extremely powerful defense, he would indeed be a tough bone to chew. Indeed, it was a wise choice to launch a sneak attack on Lei Jiao when he was least expecting it. Damn, Old Bull is too optimistic. I thought I could get 200 monthly votes today. It seems that everyone loves Old Bull and does not want him to explode. Ha. Then I will write 4 chapters today. It will count as a small explosion. However, the monthly votes are still a requirement. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 597. Qin Wushuang was well aware of the principle of changing the place after one shot. He could not stay in this area for too long. Otherwise, if he left too many traces, it might be a flaw to the experts. Qin Wushuang observed through the observant finger jade plate that Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang did not enter the water area below 4,000 feet. He decided to lead the battlefield into the water area below 400 feet. Of course, after Qin Wushuang killed Hu Qiulan, in order not to arouse Yin Zhuiyang and Lei Jiao's suspicion, he asked Wu Dingyuan to contact them and tell them that Hu Qiulan was with him. In this way, they could avoid unnecessary suspicion if they suddenly contacted Hu Qiulan and did not get a response. In the blink of an eye, almost a month had passed. The surface of the Black Dead Sea still did not have any reaction. It was as if there was no news after the 5 people went down. Besides Morong Su, the most anxious ones should be the 2 leaders of the Vase Mound aristocratic family and the 100 Sword sect. They were forced to come this time. If the 2 young people lost their lives because of this, it would not be worth it. Therefore, they did not hide their anxiety at all. As for the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect, although they did not understand, they were not worried. They had deduced many times in advance. No matter what, it was impossible for Qin Wushuang to escape from the encirclement of Lei Jiao and Yin Jueyang. Lei Jiao and Yin Jueyang also had supreme Dao weapons. Qin Yunran, on the other hand, was the calmest. In this 1 month, he looked calm and composed almost every day. It was as if he was here for a vacation. It was as if Qin Wushuang had nothing to do with him. Brother Guinan, it has been a month since they went down. There should be some news by now, right? Lei Ming could not help but ask. Yin Guinan also had some doubts in his heart. Especially Qin Yunran's behavior. It was too abnormal. It gave him a very bad feeling. However, he comforted him. Brother Lei, don't worry. Look at the black water. You can't see the end. The world under the water is too big. What can be done in 1 month? Although he said so, Yin Guinan was not so sure. In the distance, Qin Yunran smiled leisurely. Everyone is already late. I will return to the floating snow house to rest first. Do you want to wait until it is dark before you leave? Madman Ran, stop pretending to be calm. Who can't tell? You are more nervous than anyone else. Lei Ming was very unhappy. He wondered why Qin Yunran could still be so happy. He really hoped that Lei Jiao and Yin Jueyang would hurry up and bring the news of Qin Wushuang's death to Madman Ran's face. Unfortunately, he had been thinking about this every day for the past month, but it had never come true. Qin Yunran laughed and said, "All right, I never bicker with idiots. Who's nervous? Who's not nervous? Why deceive yourself?" After he had finished, Qin Yunran cupped his hands in a salute to Xian Wuji. "Your Highness, I will return first." When Xian Wuji saw that the sky was already dark, he also said, "It seems that we will not be back today. Let's all return to the floating snow house." Initially, each day they would leave early and return late. They would stay here and wait for the results. In fact, this Xian Wuji was also shrewd and patient. For ordinary people, under such a long wait, certainly they would not be able to keep their cool and would feel irritated. However, for this Xian Wuji, he was the calmest and did not have the slightest resentment. "Miss, let's also go back." When Little Bamboo saw that everyone was preparing to leave, she also advised. Murong Su only nodded unconsciously. However, he did not move his eyes. As he looked at the surface of the Black Dead Sea, his heart had already fallen into this Black Dead Sea. "Miss, don't worry. Since young Master Qin promised you 3 months, surely he will return." Young Master Qin is not a person who breaks promises. When Little Bamboo said these words, she did not have the confidence. After all, they were not going out to play, but to enter this dangerous Black Dead Sea. At the same time, they had to face a few enemies who were eyeing them covetously. Murong Su gave a light sigh. "Little Bamboo, I'm not worried. I only hope that time can pass faster." Young miss, why do your words sound so silly? I heard that love would make a woman silly. It seems to make some sense. My exceptionally intelligent young lady is really a little silly now. Little Bamboo shared a harmonious relationship with Murong Su. Naturally, it was harmless for the master and servant to joke around. She only wanted to make Murong Su happy. Murong Su smiled happily and returned reluctantly. "Master, don't you like to wait at ease for the exhausted? Why are you taking the initiative to find Lei Jiao this time?" Wu Dingyuan appeared somewhat confused. He felt that if Lei Jiao delivered himself to his door, the risk would be much smaller. Qin Wushuang laughed calmly. This tactic also varies from person to person. Dealing with Lei Jiao is different than dealing with Hu Qilan. Clearly, the relationship between Lei Jiao and Yin Jueyang is different than the two of you. He has a close relationship with Yin Jueyang. When he comes, he will hold the initiative. At any moment, he could come with Yin Jueyang. Let's go find him. We will hold the initiative. Wu Dingyuan thought about it thoughtfully and felt incredibly impressed inwardly. Now, he finally understood why the grand heavenly Luo Daoist sect had fallen so miserably before his master. It was not without reason. One must say that even if his master had emerged from the human countries, he was not inferior to the most exceptional young people of the Xianyuan Mound. He was even more exceptional than many of the young people of the same generation. According to my analysis, Lei Jiao and Yin Zhiyang have already searched the water area below 400 meters. Fortunately, for this competition, helpers are not allowed. If the heavenly punishing hawk of the heavenly punishing villa had also come, it would be disadvantageous to my operation. Qin Wushuang had experienced the power of the heavenly punishing hawk. If he had the assistance of the heavenly punishing hawk, the situation would be extremely difficult for Qin Wushuang. Of course, Qin Wushuang had the observant finger jade plate. It would be comparable to the heavenly punishing hawk, or even more useful. As he watched the jade plate in his hand keep changing, suddenly, Qin Wushuang laughed. Excellent. Lei Jiao has finally entered within 200 miles. As Qin Wushuang watched the changes of the observant finger jade plate, without a doubt, this Lei Jiao was heading towards their direction. Try to contact him and tell him our location. However, do not tell him that you have discovered our whereabouts, or else he will notify Yin Zhuiyang immediately. Wu Dingyuan nodded and suddenly said, Master, I can tell him that we seem to have discovered a trace of the presence of the phantom dragon. This will certainly attract him. Lei Jiao is a selfish person. If it truly is the bloodline of the phantom dragon, he will not be willing to share it with others. Qin Wushuang said with a smile. That would be the best. Indeed, as Wu Dingyuan had said, when Lei Jiao heard the presence of the phantom dragon, he immediately asked about it. Naturally, Wu Dingyuan told him the story that he had made up beforehand. After struggling in his heart for a while, Lei Jiao decided to check it out first before deciding whether to notify Yin Zhiyang based on the situation. After all, Yin Zhiyang was only within 500 miles. Even if something were to happen, it would be easy for them to gather within 500 miles. For someone like Lei Jiao, a distance of 200 miles would not take much time. Very soon, Lei Jiao arrived nearby. However, Lei Jiao's vigilance was not inferior to that of Hu Qilan. In fact, he was even more vigilant. After all, Lei Jiao and Yin Zhiyang were considered to be a small team. As for Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qilan, they were even less close, although they were all in the same trench and had come for the same purpose. However, in this endless water domain that was a few hundred feet deep, it was impossible to know what a person's heart was thinking. Who knew if these two had any other thoughts? Seeing Wu Dingyuan from afar, Lei Jiao did not let down his guard. Wu Dingyuan waved his hand. Brother Lei, over here. Lei Jiao asked. Didn't you say that Hu Qilan was with you? Where is he? Brother Hu Qilan was besieged by a group of giant crabs and suffered some minor injuries. He is temporarily resting in the reefs ahead. All right, where's Brother Yin? Lei Jiao said. He still has an area that he has not left, so he went over to take a look first. He will gather here soon. Both of them had ulterior motives. Obviously, they were not telling the truth. Brother Yin is not here. This matter is a little tricky, Wu Dingyuan said deliberately. Why? Lei Jiao asked, puzzled. Brother Hu Qilan and I saw a body of water ahead. It seemed to be an abandoned cave dwelling. Near the abandoned cave dwelling, there was a group of ferocious spirit beasts wandering around. It is not easy to break through. If Brother Yin was here, the four of us might have a better chance if we worked together. Abandoned cave dwelling? How big is it? Lei Jiao's heart skipped a beat. I don't know how big it is. However, I can faintly feel a strong, immemorial aura. I feel that it is the aura of the immemorial demonic dragon. Lei Jiao muttered. Immemorial demonic dragon? Could it be that this immemorial demonic dragon is still in this body of water? Wu Dingyuan smiled wryly and said, I don't know the answer to that. Brother Lei, have you found any trace of that Qin Wushuang? Lei Jiao sighed. That kid is indeed cunning. After searching for so long, we still can't find any trace of him. Unfortunately, Brother Yin can't slack off. The heavenly punishing eagle will come down. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Obviously, after a month of blind tracking, Lei Jiao was a little impatient. After all, the longer it dragged on, the greater the blow to their morale. Brother Lei, what should we do? I think the deeper we go into the body of water, the more dangerous it is. To be honest, I don't want to continue. Wu Dingyuan deliberately showed his fear. Brother Wu, don't tell me you want to back out? Lei Jiao asked with some dissatisfaction. Wu Dingyuan smiled bitterly. Brother Lei, we can't go on blindly like this. There are dangers everywhere. These days, I've been attacked by spirit beasts more than 10 times. The spirit beasts in the body of water above are already so domineering. If we go further down, I'm afraid we can't take it. Look, Brother Hu Qiulan is already injured. Luckily, it's not a big problem. Otherwise, if the 4 of us come down and 3 of us go up, it's not worth it. Lei Jiao sneered. Brother Wu, this is just the beginning, and you are already saying such discouraging words. How are we going to fight the tough battles in the future? Wu Dingyuan sighed. Brother Lei, I'm just lamenting for a moment. Let's go and see Brother Hu Qiulan first. He deliberately showed his fear to Lei Jiao, so that Lei Jiao's vigilance would be reduced slowly. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.qijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 598. This Lei Jiao had a supreme Dao weapon. Once he sensed some danger, certainly he would fall into a tough battle. If it was only Lei Jiao, Qin Wushuang would not be afraid. Even if he had a supreme Dao weapon, it would only cancel out the two. Since they were both at the void martial stage, it would be impossible for them to use a supreme Dao weapon to compete with the divine skills of a supreme Dao elite warrior. Qin Wushuang was worried that if he fell into a tough battle with Lei Jiao, he would not be able to take care of him. If Yin Zhiyang also rushed over, the situation would be unfavorable. To Qin Wushuang, it would not be an easy situation to be attacked by 2 elite warriors with supreme Dao weapons. Even with the help of the sealed spiritual beast, for sure he would lose his composure and not be able to control it. Indeed, when Lei Jiao saw Wu Dingyuan showing fear, he became less vigilant. He walked side by side with Wu Dingyuan. After walking for a moment, indeed, he saw Hu Qiulan leaning against a cluster of reefs. His complexion was pale, and he appeared incredibly depressed. Inwardly, Lei Jiao swore trash. Before they found Qin Wushuang, one of them was injured and the other showed fear. It was not strange that Lei Jiao felt angry. Although they had invited Wu Dingyuan and Hu Qiulan to join in the fun, it did not appear as if the heavenly punishing villa and the Sound of Thunder sect were targeting the aspiring Throne Qin clan. Regardless, they hoped these 2 guys would put in some effort. Unexpectedly, these 2 did not live up to expectations. Naturally, Lei Jiao felt annoyed when he looked at them. Brother Hu Qiu, how do you feel? Wu Dingyuan walked over with quick steps. Lei Jiao glanced at him with an indifferent expression. Clearly, his mind was not on Hu Qiulan. Now, he was more curious about the location of that abandoned cave dwelling. Did it have the bloodline of the Phantom Dragon? If it did, Lei Jiao would not consider giving the bloodline to Mu Rongqianji. Instead, he would take it for himself without hesitation. The bloodline of the immemorial Phantom Dragon was an absolute bloodline of the Supreme Dao. With the baptism of this Phantom Dragon bloodline, Lei Jiao would be 100% a Supreme Dao elite warrior in the future. He would be an idiot if he did not take such advantage. Could it be that he would truly give the bloodline of the Phantom Dragon to the floating snow house? He was not that noble. Morongsu? Lei Jiao admitted that Mu Rong-su was incredibly attractive. However, Lei Jiao was not an idiot. He knew that Qin Wushuang had already taken away Mu Rong-su's soul. To a woman whose mind was not on him, of course he would not give up the bloodline of the Phantom Dragon to fight for such a woman. Brother Lei, quickly come over and take a look. Brother Hu Qiu seems a little strange. Wu Dingyuan called out anxiously. Lei Jiao wasn't in a good mood, but he said perfunctorily, "It's just a minor injury. I'll be fine after resting for a while." Brother Wu, where is the abandoned immortals cave you mentioned? Wu Dingyuan said anxiously. Brother Lei, let's save them first before we look at the cave abode. Lei Jiao said unhappily. Brother Wu, you tricked me into coming here. It can't be that you want me to come and save people, right? Wu Dingyuan said anxiously. Of course not. Brother Hu Qiu was fine earlier, but now his injuries have suddenly worsened. Could it be that those demonic beasts are all poisonous? Wu Dingyuan sighed. Brother Hu Qiu, you shouldn't have visited the abandoned immortals' cave abode alone. Lei Jiao heard this, and his eyebrows twitched. Could it be that this Hu Qiulan was injured while visiting the abandoned immortals' cave abode? Thinking of this, Lei Jiao walked over quickly and asked, Brother Hu Qiu, did you get injured in the abandoned immortals' cave abode? Hu Qiulan smiled bitterly. Yes, there were many forks in the immortals' cave abode. I took the right path in front, but there was a fork in the back. I took the wrong path and was blocked by a group of big monster crabs. If I didn't react quickly, I wouldn't be so lightly injured now. Lei Jiao said in a low voice, Is the path to the immortals' cave very complicated? Do you remember the way now? Hu Qiulan said, My brain is a mess now. If I don't go there personally, how can I remember? Lei Jiao looked at Hu Qiulan's pale face and felt weak. He didn't know when he would recover, but there was no time to wait. He took out an elixir and said, This is the healing elixir of the Sound of Thunder sect. Take it first, and you'll be fine. Hu Qiulan smiled bitterly. The spiritual power in my dantian is tumbling. I don't even dare to take the elixir. I'm afraid there's a problem. Chaotic dantian? How can this be? Lei Jiao reached out and grabbed Hu Qiulan's hand. Just as he was about to test it, suddenly, the lifeless Hu Qiulan suddenly changed his expression. He became energetic, and his palm was like an iron hoop, grabbing Lei Jiao's hand. Lei Jiao was shocked and wanted to shake it off. However, Hu Qiulan's hand was like a large pincer that gripped his hand tightly. A huge force seemed to have sucked his entire body in. No matter how he struggled, it was like an ant trying to shake a big tree. He could not move at all. Something was wrong. A terrifying thought passed through Lei Jiao's mind. He suddenly remembered the Thunder Rumbling sect leader's warning. His heart quivered, and he realized that he had been tricked. He used all his strength and tried to break free. However, once his hand was grabbed, his primordial spirit seemed to be tied up by an invisible rope. He couldn't move at all. You. Lei Jiao looked at Hu Qiulan angrily, and then looked at Wu Dingyuan. He cursed, Wu Dingyuan, you are a traitor. Wu Dingyuan looked at Lei Jiao indifferently and said with hatred, Lei Jiao, you forced me to do this. If you didn't force me, why would I be here? Lei Jiao could only feel a domineering force pulling at his dantian. It was forcefully pulling out the spiritual power in his dantian. This force was like a river breaking through a dam. It was very fast and violent. Lei Jiao wanted to block the gap, but he didn't know where to start. Despair. True despair. Lei Jiao's throat kept rumbling, and he let out a desperate roar that only a dying person would have. However, all of this couldn't stop him from stepping into the abyss of despair. This Hu Qiulan was naturally Qin Wushuang in disguise. Only this time, Qin Wushuang had used the power of Deep North to trick Lei Jiao into coming to his door. He had used the safest method to take care of Lei Jiao without using a blade or a spear. Lei Jiao didn't even have the chance to call for help. The absorption power of Deep North was extremely terrifying. Lei Jiao didn't even last for 10 breaths before his entire body became soft like mud. His entire dantian was sucked dry. At this moment, Lei Jiao didn't have any of the prestige of a Leitang sect disciple. He only had the ugly state of being on the verge of death. Until now, he still couldn't figure out how he had fallen down so inexplicably. After all his precautions, he still didn't expect such an ending. He was very unwilling. Supreme Dao weapon. He had a Supreme Dao weapon on him. However, before he could use it, he was completely tricked. Qin Wushuang looked at the dispirited Lei Jiao on the ground and said to Wu Dingyuan, The Supreme Dao weapon is mine. The other good things are yours. Wu Dingyuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, They are all masters. I don't want them. Qin Wushuang smiled. He knew that Wu Dingyuan was afraid and didn't dare to take Lei Jiao's things. If they were investigated in the future, these stolen goods would be the evidence of a crime. Everything was plundered by Wu Dingyuan. That supreme Dao weapon was naturally no exception. This supreme Dao weapon was actually a supreme Dao shield. It could be used for both offense and defense. The size of the shield could be changed according to one's will. The upper part of the shield was a sharp shield blade. It was very exquisite. The entire shield was even more exquisitely carved. It was extremely exquisite. With one look, one could tell that it was a big deal. As soon as Qin Wushuang touched it, he felt the difference of this shield. It was a familiar aura that only a supreme Dao weapon would have. Although it wasn't as simple and profound as the graceful spiritual Bao, when he touched it, Qin Wushuang's body, which had been baptized by the divine light, immediately produced a kind of resonance. Only a supreme Dao weapon deserved to have this kind of resonance. The most wonderful thing about this shield was that its shape could change. For offense, it could be used to attack with flying shields and sharp blades. For defense, it was an impregnable shield. The combination of offense and defense made this supreme Dao shield appear very precious. It was no wonder that Wu Dingyuan had suggested for him to deal with Lei Jiao first. If Lei Jiao had known beforehand that Qin Wushuang wanted to deal with him, with this supreme Dao shield in his hand, Qin Wushuang's graceful spiritual Bao wouldn't have had an easy time. After all, the original shooting sun arrows of the graceful spiritual Bao were not in his hands. According to Chief Qin Yunran, those 9 shooting sun arrows had been confiscated by the Xianyuan clan. If he could get the original shooting sun arrows, that would be perfect. Lei Jiao was already on the verge of death as he kept all the equipment into his bag. Qin Wushuang ordered, "I'll leave Lei Jiao to you." After killing Lei Jiao, even if Yin Zhuiyang has wings, he won't be able to fly out of this black Dead Sea alone. Wu Dingyuan was not polite at all. He raised his hand and chopped Lei Jiao into 2. In the end, Wu Dingyuan still hated Lei Jiao. If the sound of Thunder's sect and the heavenly punishing villa hadn't forced them to come, how could Wu Dingyuan have fallen to such a state? Therefore, asking him to kill Lei Jiao was precisely to provoke the anger in Wu Dingyuan's heart. How could he be polite? After killing Lei Jiao, Qin Wushuang said, "If you want to leave, now is the right time. Remember, if you want to deceive Lei Ming and Yin Guinan, these 2 old foxes, you must pretend to be extremely frightened. It's best if you exaggerate a bit. Let them think that you're scared out of your wits and that your mind is not clear. The more you do this, the less suspicious they will be." Wu Dingyuan thought for a moment and felt that Qin Wushuang's words were very reasonable. He nodded and said, "Master, if I go up, can you deal with Yin Zhuiyang?" Qin Wushuang smiled and said, "He's the only one left. Do you think I can deal with him?" Wu Dingyuan had witnessed Qin Wushuang's methods and wisdom. He knew that with Yin Zhuiyang's skill, even if they were on par with each other in terms of divine skills, most likely Yin Zhuiyang would be the one to nurse a grievance. After Wu Dingyuan had left, Qin Wushuang had calmed down. Now the last target would be Yin Zhuiyang. With the observant finger J plate at hand, Qin Wushuang was not worried about where he would go. Regardless, this Yin Zhuiyang would die for sure. This was not only because of the continuation of the grudge between the heavenly punishing villa and the sound of thunder sect and the heavenly emperor Mountain Qin Wushuang. More importantly, when these 2 guys wanted to deal with him, they had used Murong Su as a breakthrough point. This was what Qin Wushuang hated the most. Currently, Yin Zhuiyang was searching carefully. Suddenly, he shuddered, and inwardly, he shuddered for no reason. This was not a good sign. He took out the communication jade plate with a bitter smile and was about to contact Lei Jiao. "There's one more update. Those who cannot wait can go rest. By the way, I will roar for the monthly votes in the middle of the night." To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 599. On the hillside of the Black Dead Sea, there was still a group of people. Day after day, they waited on the hillside for the result. Now it was almost evening. Apart from Qin Yunran, who was still calm, The others were more or less disappointed. It seemed that this was another disappointing day. Usually, Qin Yunran would ask them to leave. But just as Qin Yunran was about to open his mouth, he suddenly felt a wave of movement on the surface of the Black Dead Sea. Then, the surface of the water started to bubble. Boom! A wave rushed up to the sky. This wave carried a person and directly hit the shore. It was really a person, a living person. This person staggered, and his face was full of fear and shock. He looked like he was overly frightened and desperately ran up the hillside. The sharp-eyed people here had already recognized this person. Sect leader Wu Xuanhu of the 100 Swords sect recognized this person at once. It was Wu Dingyuan. He was pleasantly surprised. "It's Dingyuan. Dingyuan, what happened to you?" At this time, he did not care about his appearance anymore. He flew over and caught Wu Dingyuan. He shook Wu Dingyuan's shoulder, trying to calm him down. Wu Dingyuan's mouth was foaming. He kept mumbling as if he had seen a ghost. "Dead, dead, all dead, dead." When the others heard this, they anxiously gathered around. Murong Su almost fainted when she heard Wu Dingyuan mumbling. "Dead? Impossible." Big Brother Qin promised to come up to see her. Happy to be dead. She did not believe it. Hu Qiurui of the Huanqiu aristocratic family was the closest. He stepped forward and asked, "Nephew Dingyuan, where's my Xiaolon? Why didn't he come up?" Wu Dingyuan rolled his eyes and stared at Hu Qiurui. He was in a daze and kept mumbling, but no one knew what he was saying. "This person is crazy," someone muttered. Yin Guinan and Lei Ming also gathered around and asked, "Nephew Dingyuan, what's the situation down there?" Wu Dingyuan's throat kept trembling, but he could not say a whole sentence. A black line formed on Yin Guinan's forehead. Looking at the situation below should be very bad. Otherwise, this Wu Dingyuan would definitely not have such an expression. Lei Ming stared at Wu Dingyuan with an unfriendly expression. Seeing that Wu Dingyuan was indeed speechless, he was sure that Wu Dingyuan was probably frightened and had lost his mind. Grinning grimly, he circulated his spiritual energy and was about to enter Wu Dingyuan's knowledge sea to search for useful information. Everyone here was an expert. When they saw Lei Ming's actions, they knew what he was going to do. If it was any other time, Wu Xuanhu of the 100 Swords sect would definitely not dare to say anything. But at this moment, his emotions had reached a critical point. He stood in front of Wu Dingyuan and shouted, "Thunder Rumbling sect leader, please show mercy." Lei Ming said angrily, "Sect Master Wu, Wu Dingyuan can't possibly speak now. If we don't search his sea of consciousness, how will we know what happened?" Yin Guinan also came over to exert pressure. "Sect Master Wu, Brother Lei Ming is right." Wu Xuanhu couldn't care less now. He shook his head and said resolutely, "Sect leaders, it's not that I'm heartless. My 100 Swords sect has been helpless in this matter since the beginning. Now that Paramount is in such a mess, how can I, Wu Xuanhu, face his family when I return? No matter what, he absolutely couldn't let him suffer anymore. Whatever you want to ask, I will talk to him." Once this soul-searching technique was initiated, Wu Dingyuan's spiritual perception would definitely crumble instantly due to the powerful divine soul power of an elite warrior of the Supreme Tao. If he went in a search, Wu Dingyuan's spiritual perception would definitely crumble instantly. Lei Ming said with a cold sneer, "Sect Master Wu, this way, you are not allowing it." Wu Xuanhu looked at Xian Wuji as if asking for help. He said with a wrong tone, "Your Highness, you must make the decision for the 100 Swords sect." At this moment, of course, Xian Wuji would not sit crooked. He said lightly, "Sect leader Lei Ming, let's not search his soul." Since Xian Wuji had spoken, of course Lei Ming could not object. He shook his head with a bitter smile. "It's not that I am cruel, but for this Wu Dingyuan he cannot speak. If he cannot speak, you will search his soul." Qin Yunran smacked his tongue and laughed. "Is this how the Sound of Thunder sect deals with your allies?" "What allies?" Lei Ming asked angrily. Qin Yunran laughed leisurely. "Lei Ming, why are you still pretending at this moment? Everyone has a tacit mutual understanding. Who doesn't know that the 100 Swords sect and the Vase Mound Venerable House were dragged into the water by you? Now, you have not even crossed the bridge, and you're already pulling the plank? Inwardly, the two leaders of the Hundred Swords sect and the vase-mound venerable house felt bursts of injustice. Indeed, this Qin Yunran was speaking the truth. From beginning to end, they had never thought of becoming enemies with the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. They had been forcefully invited by the Heavenly Punishing Villa and the Sound of Thunder sect. Now, when Lei Ming treated them with such tyrannical attitude, naturally these two powerhouses felt extremely annoyed. Wu Xuanhu knew that if Wu Dingyuan did not speak, even if Lei Ming did not dare to search his soul due to the pressure, he would certainly look for an opportunity. Dingyuan, speak quickly, what happened down there? Where are the others? Wu Xuanhu kept asking. Wu Dingyuan only looked around with fear. He kept looking back at the black water, and his eyes were filled with fear. Under Wu Xuanhu's constant comforting, Wu Dingyuan's fearful expression slowly eased. Dingyuan, what is the situation? Speak. Even Hu Chue was anxious, as he could not help but ask, "Where's my little Lon?" Brother Hu Chiu, he was killed by Qin Wu Shuang, Wu Dingyuan said gloomily. Dead? Hu Chiu's entire body trembled as he felt his throat dry up. This Hu Qiulan was Hu Chiu's son. What about the others? Wu Xuanhu immediately asked. The others? I don't know. I saw Qin Wu Shuang chasing after Lei Jiao. There were many spiritual beasts. He had a few spiritual beasts. I was chased by the spiritual beasts and kept escaping. That Qin Wu Shuang chased after the four of you by himself. Wu Xuanhu asked with disbelief. Wu Dingyuan kept shaking his head and said painfully, I don't know. I saw brother Hu Chiu's body floating on the water. I was about to go over when I was surrounded by 3 spiritual beasts. In front of me, Qin Wu Shuang was fighting with Lei Jiao. Both of them used their strongest moves, but Qin Wu Shuang had the help of several spiritual beasts, which made Lei Jiao very uncomfortable. As they fought, Lei Jiao turned around and ran away. When I saw Lei Jiao run away, I also ran away. Lei Ming said happily, so Lei Jiao is not dead. When I saw him, he was not dead yet. Yin Guinan asked in a low voice, What about Zhue Yang? Brother Zhue Yang? I didn't see him at all. He might be in another area and hasn't arrived yet. Yin Guinan did not know whether he should be happy or worried. Lei Ming scolded indignantly. Does this Qin Wu Shuang have 3 heads and 6 arms? He dares to fight one against 4? Then, as he looked at Qin Yunran's calm smile, vividly Yin Guinan understood why Qin Yunran was this calm. Most likely, he already knew that Qin Wu Shuang was not afraid of the 4 of them dealing with him. Thinking of this, Yin Guinan felt a chill in his heart. He could not help but feel a little regretful. He should not have been so impulsive to deal with this Qin Wu Shuang. He might have lost an outstanding disciple this time. However, Yin Guinan still did not believe that no matter how strong Qin Wu Shuang was, it was impossible for him to deal with both Lei Jiao and Yin Zhuiyang at the same time. If it was somewhere else, they could have contacted Yin Zhuiyang or Lei Jiao directly through their consciousness. However, in the Black Dead Sea, all parties had already set up a spiritual energy barrier formation, which did not allow them to contact the 5 young people in the competition. This was originally the idea of the Heavenly Punishing Villa and the Sound of Thunder sect to prevent Qin Yunran from contacting Qin Wu Shuang. They did not expect to shoot themselves in the foot at this time. Hu Qiulan was already dead, and Wu Dingyuan had escaped. This way, the situation below should have entered a white-hot state. Regardless of which side won, it would not take long. Little Bamboo on the side said with joy, Miss, young Master Qin is fine. Did you hear that? Murong Su could not help but nod. Little Bamboo, I know, Brother Qin will be fine. Yes, evil will be repaid with evil. These 4 bad guys harbored unfathomable intentions from the beginning. They wanted to deal with young Master Qin. Now, they're either dead or mad. There are 2 more down there. Brother Qin will surely take care of them. Yin Guinan and Lei Ming exchanged glances with each other. They wanted to enter the Black Dead Sea personally. However, under such circumstances, it was clearly impossible. Not to mention that Qin Yunran would not agree. Even Xi and Wuji would not agree. After all, it would not conform to the fair principle of the competition. If they went in, they would be breaking the rules publicly. It would be the same as looking down on the authority of the Heavenly Emperor Gate. Even if they had the intention, they would not have the guts. Without any alternative, they could only wait. On the other hand, Yin Jueyang took out the communication jade plate to contact Lei Jiao. After a few attempts, he realized that Lei Jiao did not reply. Yin Jueyang was extremely sensitive as he instantly felt that something was wrong. Combined with that inexplicable shudder from a moment ago, vividly Yin Jueyang felt that something was wrong. At their level of cultivation, even a small warning sign could sometimes contain very important information. Yin Jueyang could not help but stop his footsteps. Could something have happened to Lei Jiao? When he thought here, Yin Jueyang only felt a burst of cold sweat emerge from his back. When he thought of the possibility of something happening to Lei Jiao, he could not help but shudder. When he tried again, there was still no response. Yin Jueyang calmed down and started to think about this possibility. With Lei Jiao's personality, it would be impossible for him to not respond after contacting him. There were only two possibilities. First, he did not receive the message. Second, he could not answer. If he could not answer, he would either be dead or in a dangerous situation and would not have the time to answer. After analyzing it clearly, Yin Jueyang felt even more guilty. Without Lei Jiao, it would be impossible to chase after Qin Wushuang in this black Dead Sea. Most likely, it would be possible for Qin Wushuang to hunt him down. Just as he was hesitating, suddenly, Yin Jueyang felt a burst of powerful aura rolling towards him from nearby. Not good. Instantly, Yin Jueyang felt this burst of murderous intent rolling towards him. If you want to know what happened next, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 600. Yin Jueyang no longer hesitated and turned to leave. He had faintly realized that all along, it was not them who had been hunting Qin Wushuang, but Qin Wushuang who had been hunting them. They had already lost contact with Lei Jiao. Without a doubt, he must have met with misfortune. Thinking of this, Yin Jueyang's aura had already weakened a little. His whole body curled up and turned into a fiery red, flowing light. In front of this flowing light, there were two fin-like wings. This allowed him to maintain his balance when sprinting, so that he would not be at a loss when being suddenly attacked. As Yin Jueyang sprinted, he held the supreme Dao weapon that Yin Guinan had given him his hand. It was a supreme Dao saber. The hilt was extremely long, but the blade was not wide. Because the blade was not wide, when used underwater, the resistance from the water pressure would be relatively smaller, allowing it to unleash a stronger effect. Regardless of whether it was slashing or chopping, the power of the supreme Dao weapon could be unleashed to the extreme. Yin Jueyang did not flee out of fear. It was a natural fear that arose from an unknown situation. Yin Jueyang, where are you going in such a hurry? A mighty voice spread out along with the push of the water, as if it was squeezing in from all directions. Hearing this voice, one could tell that it was Qin Wushuang. Yin Jueyang was greatly shocked. If it was only a suspicion now, then it was without a doubt now. It was indeed Qin Wushuang. Yin Jueyang's heart sank as he pondered. How can this Qin Wushuang lock on my position? As this question arose in his mind, the feeling of uneasiness grew even stronger. The enemy was not frightening. What was frightening was that there were too many things that he could not figure out. Yin Jueyang clenched his teeth and actually ignored Qin Wushuang. Instead, he sprinted at full speed, trying to get rid of Qin Wushuang's pursuit. However, he did not know that no matter where he went, Qin Wushuang could easily lock onto his position with the observant finger jade plate. Especially within a short distance, this kind of locking onto was extremely accurate. Unknowingly, a day had passed as the chase continued. Yin Jueyang's initial annoyance and uneasiness had evolved into deep doubt and fear. He felt that it was simply impossible. In terms of speed, Yin Jueyang was very confident. Just by hearing his name, one could tell a thing or two. However, it was as if Qin Wushuang had tied a rope around his body. No matter how he ran, he was like a kite, unable to escape from his opponent's control. Yin Zhuiyang panted as he pondered. If I keep running, it will only continue to weaken my fighting spirit and strengthen his confidence. He's definitely doing this to exhaust my spiritual power in Yuan Shun and weaken my will to fight. In for a penny, in for a pound. Why don't we just fight him? Yin Zhuiyang suddenly had an evil thought. He adjusted his dantian and swallowed an elixir to replenish the spiritual energy he had consumed during the high-speed operation. Grabbing the supreme Dao long blade, he stood on top of a reef and waited for Qin Wushuang to come over. However, to Yin Zhuiyang's disappointment, when he was in aggressive mood and was ready for a fierce battle, Qin Wushuang did not appear, like a cat playing with a mouse. Yin Zhuiyang waited for an hour, but still did not see Qin Wushuang. He activated his divine consciousness and spread it out, shouting, "Qin Wushuang, you are sneaking around. If you want to fight, then come out and fight." In order to increase his momentum, Yin Zhuiyang waved the long saber in his hand. That divine Dao weapon was indeed extraordinary. Powerful and fierce saber lights shot out in all directions, stirring up the water within a radius of 10 miles into a pot of soup. The water kept churning like boiling water. After a long time, the battle array finally calmed down. Yin Zhuiyang pricked up his ears to listen. What made him depressed was that Qin Wushuang did not respond to him at all. His pretentious act was like winking at a blind man. It was completely useless. Seeing that Qin Wushuang did not respond, Yin Zhuiyang did not feel happy at all. Instead, he became even more irritated. If Qin Wushuang was willing to come out and fight, Yin Zhuiyang would be more confident. Regardless of whether he could win, he would at least have a necessary understanding of Qin Wushuang's magical abilities. However, Qin Wushuang did not respond. Everything seemed to be in a fog. Everything was in a state of confusion. Naturally, this increased Yin Zhuiyang's fear and worry. Yin Zhuiyang used his divine consciousness to observe for a moment. He knew that this was about 400 feet below the surface of the water. This region of water was already very dangerous. If he stayed here for too long, he was afraid that he would attract the spiritual beasts of this region of water. Now that the wolf's door was still open, it would be terrible if a hungry tiger entered through the back door. Therefore, Yin Zhuiyang waited for a while. Seeing that there was no movement, he decided to retreat. Just as he took a few steps, Qin Wushuang's voice rang out like a haunting ghost. "Yin Zhuiyang, do you think that there is still a way out for you in this black Dead Sea?" Qin Wushuang's voice was neither fast nor slow, as if he was deliberately provoking Yin Zhuiyang. The calmer Qin Wushuang was, the more terrified Yin Zhuiyang was. He could not help but ask, "Qin Wushuang, what did you do to Lei Jiao and the others? Do you want to know?" Qin Wushuang asked sinisterly. Suddenly, he laughed. "If you want to know, I can send you to meet him. Moreover, I guarantee that this will be your only home." "You killed him?" Yin Zhuiyang's heart trembled. His whole body could not help but tremble. He knew Lei Jiao's methods. They were not any worse than his. Moreover, Lei Jiao had the divine Dao shield that combined both attack and defense. If even Lei Jiao could not escape from Qin Wushuang's pursuit, then he, Yin Zhuiyang, would definitely not be able to escape. Thinking of this, Yin Zhuiyang could only feel cold sweat trickling down his back. He realized that everyone had underestimated Qin Wushuang. The price of underestimation was very tragic. At this moment, Yin Zhuiyang's last bit of hope had been completely extinguished. He only had one thought: escape. Escape from the water. Thinking of this, Yin Zhuiyang flipped his body and rushed upwards like a divine dragon emerging from the water. A depth of 4,000 feet was not a problem at all. He could reach it within a breath's time. However, they were already far away from their starting point and out of the water. To return to the shore of the mountain behind the floating snow house, it would be at least a few thousand miles. "Are you coming up?" Qin Wushuang smiled slightly and let out a low whistle. A golden light suddenly pressed down on Yin Jueyang's escape route. This golden light was just like the golden light used to deal with Hu Qilon. It came crashing down with the force of Mount Tai. The oppressive force of this golden light was extremely strong. Before Yin Jueyang could reach the position of the golden light, it was as if he had been pressed down by an iron plate. His forward momentum was greatly reduced. Yin Jueyang was startled and suddenly realized this Qin Wushuang has already set up an inescapable net and is waiting for me. Thinking of this, Yin Jueyang's upward momentum was immediately stopped. This stop allowed the golden light to gain the upper hand. It pressed down and blasted Yin Jueyang downwards. Yin Jueyang hurriedly stabbed diagonally, trying to shift to another area and rush upwards again. Yin Jueyang, do you think that you still have a way out? Qin Wushuang's voice once again surged from all directions. Yin Jueyang did not even have the desire to talk back. He rushed left and right, looking for a space to break through. However, no matter which direction he went, his path was blocked from all directions, including the top. In this dark water, he could not even see the origin of the enemy clearly. He was then pushed back by waves of oppressive force. How could he know that Qin Wushuang had 10 spiritual beasts at hand? For the 12 sealed spiritual beasts of the zodiac, besides the 2 strongest ones that had not been summoned, the other 10 had all been summoned. Of course, Qin Wushuang did not allow the 5 spiritual beasts at the profound void martial stage and below to participate in the pursuit of Yin Jueyang. After all, Yin Jueyang was at the peak of the profound void martial stage. Plus, with the supreme Dao weapon at hand, his combat power could even be on par with elite warriors at the exquisite mysterious boundary stage. Therefore, he only sent 2 purple pupil golden ox and burning sky explosive tiger at the profound mysterious stage, and 3 perfect void martial stage void devil goat, great desolate giant monkey, and illusionary cloud divine hound. The combat power of these 5 spiritual beasts were all impressive. Even if they feared the supreme Dao weapon, at least they could attack and defend well when facing Yin Jueyang. Even if they could not defend against the power of the supreme Dao weapon, they could still take a step back. Therefore, it would not be too risky to let them participate in the pursuit. Of course, Qin Wushuang was not idle. The reason why he was not in a rush to make a move was because he could not control the graceful spiritual bow as skillfully and freely as he did on land in this water body. After all, the water pressure in this 1,000-meter water body was extraordinary. Although it could not stop the power of the graceful spiritual bow, it was enough to affect the trajectory of the bow. On the path of the bow, an arrow, once the accuracy was lost, there would be no power to speak of. Since Yin Jueyang had run into a wall everywhere, he was also feeling anxious. It was not because he did not want to launch a general attack. If he gritted his teeth and charged forward, he firmly believed that he could definitely break open a gap. However, this charge would mean a head-on collision. A head-on collision would mean the instant he collided, he would be stopped. That Qin Wushuang had the supreme Dao Bao and arrow. This instant would be enough for the other party to shoot. Because of this layer of concern, Yin Jueyang had dashed left and right for dozens of times without stopping. His consideration was to not be locked onto by Qin Wushuang's supreme Dao Bao and arrow. Everything above and all around has been controlled. Yin Jueyang made up his mind and gritted his teeth as he thought, at most I will go down. I don't believe that Qin Wushuang would dare to chase me all the way to the 5,000-meter water body. Yin Jueyang made up his mind and used the 1,000-kilogram drop to rush downwards. This downwards rush was very sudden. It was the only gap in Qin Wushuang's defensive circle, because this was the mindset. The further down one went, the more death it would be. Therefore, there was no need to set up a defense below. However, this Yin Jueyang was looking for a way out from a dead end. Qin Wushuang let out 3 short whistles and said with his consciousness, "Everyone, control the formation and lock onto his area. Don't let him find any space to rush upwards." Qin Wushuang knew that there would be no future if he went down. As long as he cut off his escape route, Yin Jueyang would not be able to survive. Qin Wushuang's murderous intent intensified. He led his team and continued to lock onto Yin Jueyang. There was only one goal, and that was to kill Yin Jueyang. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 601. Yin Jueyang also had unspeakable bitterness. He knew that if he continued to escape, he would only have a slim chance of survival. But no matter what, it was better than certain death above. This feeling was like drinking poison to quench one's thirst. He knew that if he drank the poison, he would most likely die from it. But if he did not drink it, he would immediately die of thirst. Therefore, even though Yin Jueyang knew that his chances of survival were slim, he still desperately drilled down. Even if he was squeezed to death by the water pressure below, it was still better than dying in the hands of Qin Wushuang. The black water flow continuously separated on both sides of Yin Jueyang's body. The deeper he went, the denser the water became. Naturally, the water pressure also became stronger. As Yin Jueyang walked to the back, his breathing became hurried. According to his estimation, he should have reached over 450 zhang. In the beginning, the water pressure would obviously increase every 10 zhang. But after 450 zhang, he felt that the water pressure would abruptly increase every 40 to 50 zhang. Yin Jueyang's entire body was constantly being squeezed by the water pressure. He had already started to feel uncomfortable. His sprinting speed was obviously not as fast as before. When he reached the area of 480 zhang, Yin Jueyang only felt that he was not moving in the water. Moreover, he was moving in the Har mountain wall. The water pressure might not be as dense as the mountain wall, but the water was flowing. It was completely different from a mountain wall that was still. Because of the flow of the water pressure formed by the flow of the water pressure, combined with the density of the water pressure, it was as if the power from all directions was constantly squeezing towards him with his body as the center. His breathing also became hurried. Yin Jueyang was surrounded by the water, as if he had sunk into a quagmire. He could only use the supreme Dao long blade in his hand to open a path. At this time, the advantage of the supreme Dao weapon was displayed. As soon as the long saber moved, the surrounding water pressure would be pushed away by him, giving him a space to relieve the pressure proudly and gasp for breath. It is already close to 500 zhang of water. Yin Jueyang adjusted himself while releasing his divine sense to observe the movement behind him. At this depth of the water, the density of the water was too high. It blocked his divine sense and prevented him from probing very far. Yin Jueyang snorted coldly in his heart. This Qin Wushuang is really strange, but I don't believe that he doesn't have any weak points. Even if he was strong, could it be that he could run amok in this 500 zhang wide body of water? If worst comes to worst, I'll compete with him and see who can withstand the pressure in this deep water. On this point, Yin Jueyang was very confident. He felt that his Supreme Dao weapon would definitely be more useful than Qin Wushuang's Supreme Dao Bao. It was impossible for the Supreme Dao Bao and arrow to be like his long saber, which could be used to open a path at any time. The effect of using a bow and arrow to cut through the waves was definitely not as good as using a long sword. Thinking of this, Yin Jueyang suddenly became optimistic. After adjusting for a while, he finally adjusted himself to his best state. With a wave of his saber, he no longer dived deeper. Instead, he began to explore horizontally in the parallel waters. He knew that there was no way out if he dived deeper into the water. He could only swim horizontally and try to find a breakthrough point to rush to the surface of the water. As long as he could reach the surface of the water, Yin Jueyang was confident that he could escape Qin Wushuang's pursuit. This Qin Wushuang is truly shameless. He brought so many helpers. He is clearly going against the rules of the competition. Yin Jueyang swore inwardly. In fact, he also knew that Qin Wushuang's helpers would certainly be sealed spiritual beasts. It was not that the heavenly punishing villa did not have sealed spiritual beasts. However, sealed spiritual beasts with exceptional strength were extremely rare. After all, the mainstream of the Xianyuan Mound was still human martial artists, and not the forbidden spiritual zones where the beast clan dominated. Like a carefully swimming fish, he slowly explored the 500 zhong wide body of water. Every time he walked a certain distance, Yin Jueyang would probe to see if there was a chance to break through. There were a few times when he tried to rush out of the water. However, each time he rushed to about 450 zhong, someone would easily lock onto him. All kinds of attacks would come at him mercilessly. Yin Jueyang was simply flustered and exasperated. After failing a few times, he did not dare to expose his whereabouts. He could only hide in the 500 zhong wide body of water. Inwardly, he thought with extreme depression, this Qin Wushuang must have some method to lock onto my position. Or else, how could he know which direction I am moving in when I am moving horizontally and the water pressure is spreading in all directions? After all, with one point as the center, all directions could be used as a breakthrough point. Reasonably, if one did not lock onto his position, it would be impossible to capture him while he was moving horizontally. It must be like this. Yin Jueyang was not stupid. He considered that his 3 companions had mysteriously disappeared. In this boundless body of water, the 4 of them had searched for him for more than a month and found nothing. However, this Qin Wushuang had easily taken out his 3 companions. It was definitely not because Qin Wushuang's method was more brilliant than theirs, nor was it because his searching ability was more powerful than theirs. Even if Qin Wushuang's realm of consciousness was strong, it should not be to such an extent. Even if he was in the divine Tao realm, the searching range of his consciousness in this dark body of water was definitely not unlimited. However, Qin Wushuang was able to find all 3 of his companions in more than a month and get rid of them one by one. This proved that Qin Wushuang definitely had a cheating tool. Moreover, Yin Jueyang had personally experienced it. At that time, Qin Wushuang was chasing behind him. No matter how he escaped, it seemed that Qin Wushuang could always easily lock onto his position. Now, he was even more certain that Qin Wushuang definitely had a cheating tool. Thinking of this, Yin Jueyang suddenly felt very depressed. If this continued, he would not have any hope of escaping from the Black Dead Sea. Should he rush up and fight Qin Wushuang head-on? Even if Yin Jueyang had this idea, when he thought of Lei Jiao's end, he immediately became discouraged. If Lei Jiao could not defeat Qin Wushuang, he would only die if he went. Even if he was not weaker than Lei Jiao, he was definitely not stronger than Lei Jiao. Now, perhaps I can only endure. Yin Jueyang thought in his heart. Endure. I will continue to endure. After 3 months, if we don't go up, Sovereign and the others will definitely come down to search for us. As long as Sovereign arrives, Qin Wushuang will be dreaming if he wants to kill me. Right now, only half of the 3-month deadline was left. In other words, as long as he could endure this 1.5 months, he would have a great chance of surviving. Thinking of this, Yin Jueyang's courage, which was constantly losing, once again rose. Qin Wushuang, if I successfully escape this time, I will definitely not let you off, Yin Jueyang said ruthlessly in his heart. At this moment, Qin Wushuang's voice, which was faintly discernible, rang out once again. Due to the water pressure, this voice was not loud. Mixed with the flow of the water, it sounded like a buzzing sound. However, it could still be heard clearly. Yin Jueyang, how's the 500 feet of water feel? Qin Wushuang still had that indifferent tone as he asked with a hint of ridicule. Yin Jueyang was enraged as he roared. Qin Wushuang, don't be complacent. Aren't you just relying on some cheating tools? Don't think that I don't know. You can kill Lei Jiao and the others. If you have the ability, come and kill me. Qin Wushuang said leisurely. Kill you? Isn't that as easy as killing a pig or a dog? Do you think that I can't kill you? You can kill me? Yin Jueyang sneered. If you can, then come down. Let's compete and see who can last longer in the deep water. Yin Jueyang had always believed that Qin Wushuang would definitely not dare to come down. He was confident that he would be able to withstand the water pressure better than Qin Wushuang. Firstly, his supreme Tao weapon was more advantageous. Secondly, the armor on his body was also very advantageous in resisting the water pressure. Qin Wushuang sneered. He had forced Yin Jueyang to dive so that Yin Jueyang would have no way to escape. As for the water pressure, he might not be able to withstand Yin Jueyang under normal circumstances. However, the supreme Tao shield that Lei Jiao had left for him was a supreme Tao weapon with extremely strong defense. Yin Jueyang, since you wanted to go down, then I will go down and play with you. After chasing Yin Jueyang to the 500 feet area, Qin Wushuang knew that it was impossible for Yin Jueyang to escape easily. Therefore, it was now time to reap Yin Jueyang's life. As the supreme Tao shield was activated, it immediately became bigger. It was like a flying boat that was braving the wind and waves. The water on both sides parted, creating a waterway. The shape of the shield was just like a small boat. Although it could not move freely in the 500 feet area, it was still very stable. White waves were constantly shooting out from both sides. The speed of travel was much faster than Yin Jueyang's previous speed. Yin Jueyang only felt a violent fluctuation in the water. Then, in the area that he could see with his naked eyes, Qin Wushuang's figure became very clear. When he saw that Qin Wushuang was coming over on Lei Jiao's supreme Tao shield, he knew the seriousness of the problem. His soul had been scattered. With such speed, it was not something that Yin Jueyang could compare with. If the other party could move freely in the 500 feet area, Yin Jueyang, would not even have the qualifications to contend with him. In great shock, he subconsciously dove down. At this moment, there was a loud boom in the water area below. Around the water area, a big hole like a black hole suddenly appeared. A ray of blue light shot out, illuminating the entire water area. The blue light was abnormally demonic and produced a huge devouring power. It was like a tempting abyss was placed in front of Yin Jueyang. To enter or not to enter. Yin Jueyang's hesitation only lasted for a blink of an eye before he plunged in. He had no other choice. When Qin Wushuang saw the big hole appear, he was also stunned. Seeing Yin Jueyang rush in, he did not hesitate. With the graceful spiritual bow in hand, he followed in. The blue light opened and closed like a demon opening its mouth to devour everything. Suddenly, it closed, and the surrounding water fell back down, returning to its original calm state. Just like that, Yin Jueyang and Qin Wushuang disappeared in the water area. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.